The Blast from Our Past Network.
Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura, a deep dive into underrated and unknown television shows from our youth. Cartoons, sitcoms, cop shows, and much more. Sit back and enjoy some nostalgic fun with TV Obscura.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special Halloween episode of Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura. I am 1/3 of the PAD team, Corey, aka Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, is my two brothers from other mothers. We're all from other mothers. Zach Schaefer and Diallo Jackson. And this episode is about 3 years in the making because we are finally talking about Ow, Werewolves of Fox. Ow. Ow. That's right. We're finally talking about motherfucking Werewolf, 1987, Fox's fucking inaugural, one of its inaugural shows. And as you all know, we've been excited to talk about this show for a long time now. It is not, in fact, out in the States on DVD or Blu-ray. We procured a copy from somewhere, but it also turns out to be on YouTube. So we posted all the links on our Patreon page for free. So, of course, if you haven't seen the show or if you haven't seen it in 30 some odd years like us, then go swing on over to our Patreon page. You do not have to be a member. We didn't put it behind the paywall. It's all in there for free, and you can watch every single episode of Werewolf.
It's the 35th anniversary.
Is this year? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, huh?
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, guys, before we jump into this, I do want to throw out, what are your all's Halloween plans? Zach, what you got going on with Bodie and the family this Halloween?
Trick-or-treating.
Nice.
Trick-or-treating, but we have this sweet ride. It's like an electric bike with a big bucket in the front that holds a bunch of kids. So we're going to pop the kids in the chariot and electric up and down the hills. And but Bodie and I have a tradition to watch Monster Squad every year. That's our Halloween tradition now, is to watch The Monster Squad. That's our Halloween movie.
That's awesome. I love Halloween movie traditions. Maybe on Wrap Up After Dark this month, we'll talk about like what our go-to Halloween movies are. Doesn't mean they have to be at Halloween time, but what we always have to watch around Halloween to get in the mood for Halloween. Diallo, will you be joining Zach and Bodie on their adventures?
I haven't been invited. So.
Oh.
Hey Diallo, you want to come hang out with us on Halloween?
I mean, whatever. If I'm free.
I'm going to take that as a yes.
Well, I will ask this. Diallo, you just got back from Hawaii, my dude. How was your trip?
Oh, man, it was great. Went out to cheer on my buddy that did the Ironman World Championship in Kona.
Oh. Whoa.
He was supposed to do it in 2020. A few things came up.
Just a few things, you know.
He's been training for it for 2.5 years, and he finally did it. So it was really, we all went out to root him on and see him cross the finish line. What an epic journey that was.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah. And, the Hawaii is Hawaii, man. I just I was there, and I was like, why don't I move back? And haven't made plans yet, but I'm thinking about it.
But you're looking at that hard ticket to Hawaii real nice right now.
Ticket
Yeah.
to Hawaii.
Yeah. It's
But y'all, just don't forget, it's not paradise all the time. So, guys and gals, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. We are trying a new format for this episode of TV Obscura. We discussed offline that for bigger shows, ones where we kind of like really want to dive into multiple episodes, we're going to do it like this, have a whole episode dedicated. Spoiler alert, we're probably going to do this again with Captain Power in the future. But right now, it's kind of a test run. For how we're going to cover a full show. So I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to be talking about the history of Werewolf plus the pilot. Zach is going to be tackling 2 episodes from the middle because we just looked up what was like the highest rated. So Zach is going to be tackling To Dream of Wolves parts 1 and 2. It was episodes 25 and 26. And then Diallo is going to tackle the very pathetic finale. But he's also going to tackle a couple more episodes because, yeah, the episode we gave him kind of sucked. So he's going to piece it all together for us. But before I jump into what's going on with, like, you know, the show and everything, the history behind it and everything, what is our experience with the show? Diallo, what's your experience with Werewolf 1987?
You know, I was in high school, I think maybe like sophomore year when Fox hit the airwaves. So I was kind of in that super target demographic that they were trying to hit with like teens and 18 through 20, whatever. So, you know, I was all about Fox, and this show called Werewolf came on. It was on Saturday nights, and it just blew me away. Like, I'd never seen anything like that on television. The key word is on television.
Yeah.
And, you know, if anybody goes back and watches it, you're obviously going to be judging it against, like, what they can do today. But this was, like, a huge feat and a big attempt for what they could do on TV. And even the movie Wolf that came out in 97, 10 years later, was sort of like groundbreaking in film, and still wasn't able to capture all of the glory. So just to put this show into perspective, but yeah, I used to watch it religiously on Saturday nights, and then at church the next day with some of my friends talking about the episode. And we were just, I don't know, we were just really into it. And, but you know, it just like, most things of that time, it was only on one season, and it just kind of went away, and always remembered it, but never really stumbled across it ever. And, you know, and we found out why.
But we'll dive into that.
Yeah,
more.
We'll dive into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a show that like near and dear to my heart, and yeah, again, lots of memories of just like, I wasn't a party goer when I was in high school, so I was at home on Fridays and Saturday nights watching TV, and this was one of the highlights of the weekend.
You and I, even though we were different time frames or whatever, we had the same high school experience. I was a bit of a nerd or whatever. I never didn't go to parties and stuff. Stayed home, played video games, hung out with my friends, watched movies and TV.
Yeah.
Zach, what is your history with Werewolf 1987? The series?
Well, I think all three of us are the same in that way.
Spoiler alert.
Because I'd rather be home watching TV and living the fantasy life than being a part of reality, which wasn't all that great. I think I was 11 years old at the time, in 87, yeah. And similar to what Diallo said, you know, horror television series up until this point had been really good, like Tales from the Dark Side, and for example, Monsters was another one that obviously we've covered both, but nothing had been on like mainstream TV, a mainstream network, and that wasn't syndicated. I think Friday the 13th, the series came out the same year, but that was syndicated. So for something to come out in prime time on a Friday night and be as gritty and as dark in its initial episodes, at least, as it was, and have special effects that, by today's standards are not amazing, but by 87 standards were pretty freaking great. Dare I say, the best looking werewolf makeup up until that point. Like, this was the best in 87, and I don't think anything else compared to this. You know, possibly, well, Monster Squad came out the same year.
But I mean, that's a different beast, though. You know, movie versus TV budget. I would say your first statement, this is the best looking werewolf. I'd say on TV, absolutely. But then as far as like as compared to movies go, I'd give it like top 3. I'd give it, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's up there with The Howling and Monster Squad's Stan Winston-esque looking, werewolf.
Yeah, same werewolf with a bigger budget and different shots and able to do more takes, different lighting. It would have held up just as much. So it was like the werewolf itself was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the people that worked on the makeup on the werewolf, Rick Baker was the one who designed the werewolf.
There you go.
That's why it looks as good as it does, because it is Rick Baker. And if you don't know who Rick Baker is, what the hell are you doing listening to our show?
Yes, exactly.
He has experience with another werewolf, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was. He did American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, which
So this one,
I see shades of the face in this. You know, with the snout and the pointy ears and everything.
But dare I say, one of the most we'll talk about the transformations as we get into this, but dare I say one of the most interesting transformations for one of the werewolves I've ever seen.
Yep, I noted that as well, my friend, and we are definitely going to talk about that one. Yeah, same as you guys. I watched the hell out of this when I was a kid. I think I'm the youngest of the three of us, so I think I was 9 when it hit. But if this thing came out either Friday or Saturday, that I can remember. This is why I watched the shit out of it with Luke, because we would always hang out on the weekends and whatnot. And I remember, I think it was our Halloween of '87. We went as werewolves, for Halloween, both of us, and we found like cool werewolves masks and everything. And I guarantee you, it was inspired by this show right here. So, and like you guys, I haven't fucking seen it in 35 years. It's lived in my memory fondly for so long, but at the same time, I was telling my wife, I got shit confused in my head. Like, I thought, just, before I watched this, I thought the bounty hunter was also a werewolf. I think I kind of merged the old guy and the bounty hunter together in my head, yada, yada, yada. But boy, oh boy, I just want to say right now, holy shit, this show holds up really fucking well. Before we jump into really the nitty gritty of it, just high level thoughts. Just what did you think of it 35 years later? I give it 2 thumbs up. It's not like perfect all the way through. There's some episodes that aren't great, but for the most part, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Diallo, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, I give it like 1.5 thumbs up. I was struck by just how, like, I was impressed by what they did, but then I also, looking at the werewolf, I was like, man, like, we really have come a long way. But I remember at the time that was the best they could do, and I was blown away by that show at the time. So it still mostly holds up. So yeah, definitely. It's one of those ones where I'm just like, yeah, I think I texted you guys before. I was like this is a show that once again, it was just ahead of its time, and that was its only problem with it.
It's probably that and the budget. Yep, I'm sure the budget didn't help it.
Yeah.
Zach, thumbs up or thumbs down on how well this holds up in 2022?
Definitely thumbs up. I think because by today's standards, most television series are, 12 episodes, 10 episodes, 9 episodes, 8 episodes. So they pack all the best content and they shave off all the fat, basically. Back in the day, you had to fill a lot more time slots, and you were at the, sadly, you were at the, the what do you call it? You basically had to appease the network gods by just throwing stuff out there on occasion. So yeah, there's some episodes that don't hit. Case in point, the finale. Well, it's not even the finale. It's let's just call it the last episode of the series that aired.
Yeah.
That aired, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a finale by any means whatsoever. But I give it a total 2 thumbs up. Yeah, I love it. I love the premise. It definitely takes shades from a lot of other series and just elements of other television shows and tropes from movies and whatnot. But it does it in a really original way, in my opinion.
I agree. And when we talk about the creator's pedigree, I think you will sort of get the idea of the quality of this show.
No doubt.
So I'm going to give us the backstory and the history on this, and we're going to talk about a couple key cast members here. And then when we dive into each segment, and we talk about the pilot, yada, 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 we're going to talk about any specific actors in those chunks. So we'll keep talking about, because there's a lot of cool guest spots in this series. And I do want to shout out all the awesome actors that we do see along the line. But at the beginning, we're going to talk about just the few that kind of go throughout the whole series. So Werewolf is an American horror series created by Frank Lupo. Now, that's the pedigree I was talking about. He co-created The A-Team, Renegade, Wise Guy, and Hunter.
Keep going. Riptide.
Yeah, Riptide.
Hardball with our boy Richard Tyson.
Yep.
For example. Riptide's definitely going to show up on our show.
Yeah,
Nice.
I can't wait. I can't wait till we do Riptide, actually.
Both you guys have mentioned that one, and I'm excited for that one. And as I mentioned, this was one of Fox's inaugural shows.
I also want to throw out their Greatest American Hero.
Oh, did he create that too?
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Wise Guy.
Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned Wise Guy. Sorry.
And Hunter, which I love.
He didn't create Greatest American Hero, but he wrote 10 episodes of the series. So,
Okay, nice. So yeah, he's got a strong TV background.
Battlestar Galactica, he wrote. BJ and the Bear, he wrote. I mean, we're speaking Diallo's love language right now. So many shows, so many shows. Anyways, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, thank you. I think that illustrates the quality, or as to why the quality for this show is so high. Werewolf lasted one season for 29 episodes. The pilot was 2 hours, but each episode after that was only 30 minutes. So the show follows the adventures of Eric Cord, played by John J. York, a college student transformed into a werewolf who undergoes a quest to rid himself of his curse by killing the apparent originator of his bloodline, a drifter named Janos Skorzeny. Janos Skorzeny. By the way, this character was named after the vampire in the Night Stalker TV series. While pursuing Skorzeny, Cord himself is pursued by the persistent bounty hunter Alamo Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
I know, right? I did a double take when I saw that.
Every time they said his name, I was like, oh, that guy.
That fucking guy. The guy from Just Shoot Me.
Later, Cord hunts Nicholas Remy, played by Brian Thompson, the real originator of the bloodline. We're going to talk more about Brian Thompson later, but right now, let's just talk about the three main characters that you're going to see throughout the course of this show. John J. York. Zach, you want to tell us about him?
Yeah, he was mostly a soap actor. And, I only knew him from this show. Loved him in this show. But he was on General Hospital forever, and All My Children, and had an episode of Murder, She Wrote. Rest in peace to
Murder, She Wrote.
Our amazing
Angela Lansbury just
Angela
passed
R.I.P.
today.
R.I.P.
Yeah. But no, mostly, TV series, made for TV movies, stuff like that. And he's, spent most of his time on the soap opera circuit.
Yeah.
Good money in there.
Yeah, sure is. Good work right there.
Holding it down on Days of Our Lives, man.
Mm-hmm. Alamo Joe, we'll just keep him as Alamo Joe. We can drop the Rogan. Is played by Lance LeGault. He's really cool in this, but I kind of don't really recognize him until I stumbled upon he played the Reverend, aka spoiler alert, the killer in Nightmare Beach. That was actually a movie from 1989. That was actually a movie that I picked up from Kino Lorber on Blu-ray for like $8 or something like that. I was like, fuck it, I'll get that, and watched it. It's a fun movie, Nightmare Beach. Check it out. It's nice. I think it was like an Italian horror film, but filmed in America, so it had kind of a weird vibe to it. David Irons probably knows more about the backstory of Nightmare Beach, but he was also in Stripes as Colonel Glass.
I knew him as Colonel Decker on the A-Team. That's where I knew him. As soon as he popped on screen, I was like, "Whoa, I know that guy."
There you go. And of course,
he's got one of those
with the connection between Lupo and the A-Team.
Yeah, there you go. And he's got one of those gravelly voices like Michael Wincott before Michael Wincott. He's got such a great tone to the way he talks, even though he's a part Indian, apparently. Which I shouldn't be calling it that nowadays because that's not very culturally appropriate. But, back in 1997, they didn't give a shit.
They actually...
Alamo Joe.
They actually did a little bit of acknowledgement of his not actually being Indian in real life by having him be conflicted. It was actually a part of his character to like not appreciate his Indian heritage, and I think there were a couple episodes that they kind of focused on that actually. So cool. They did work it in. It wasn't a blatant John Wayne showing up as Genghis Khan.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
And then finally, he's technically through most of the series, but not really at the same time. So Chuck Connors from Old Yeller, man, fucking Soylent Green. This dude is like an old school, like cowboy type of dude. What else was he in? Was it Shane or something like that?
Shane.
He was an Old Yeller. Tourist Trap. He played that's a kind of a cult horror film. It's not. It's okay, but he's good in Tourist Trap. But he was a pro basketball player too.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
He played for the what team did he play for? He played for the oh god.
I'm gonna say the Celtics just because
I feel like it was the Celtics.
I feel like he is a Celtic player.
And it's not Shane. It was the Virginian. That's what I was thinking of. But he early in his career he did a lot of like Western stuff and everything. But he's an old school guy. But
yeah, he played for the Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Celtics.
Jesus.
So
Good
he was like,
Lord.
Well, he did play for the Celtics. I pulled that out of the recesses of my subconscious.
So we do have to call out the fact that he's in the pilot, and his character is in the rest of the series, but Chuck Connors himself sort of isn't. After the pilot, he wanted to renegotiate his contract for more money. Various episodes were written to feature his character, and they were shot without Connors, using only scenes with him in his werewolf form, plus a human body double with no dialogue. Series creator Frank Lupo asked the producers to kill off him in Dream of Wolves. So that was the two-parter. He's in it, sort of. Connors agreed to return for the finale. The script was originally written as a three-parter, with Connors playing the first two parts. But 2 days before shooting, they were informed that Connors would not take the part. The first two episodes were collapsed into one. All of his dialogue was now cut, aside from flashback stuff featuring a younger actor. And his part was rewritten to show him creatively kneeling before the main bad guy. In the final fight between Eric and him, our main character, our protagonist, Eric scars him, so scars his face before sort of electrocuting him and shit. So that way when he turns back into human form, they can use the same body double and just play him with disfigured makeup. But Chuck Connors was so fucking good in the pilot. It's just a damn shame that it seems like he just talked himself out of the role by trying to gouge more money out of it.
Yeah, it's almost like the nail was already in the coffin on this show the minute it started.
Right? It doesn't seem like that kind of bodes well, like
when
right out of the
lead villain.
gate.
Yeah,
right?
your lead villain doesn't want to. That would not fly nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, people do it all the time, and then, but yeah, back in the day, if shit like that went down, it makes total sense why this show suffered as it did.
So, just a few more things. The series was similar in tone to The Fugitive and The Incredible Hulk, but felt more contemporary due to the rock-inspired soundtrack. Zach, can you tell us about who composed the score?
Yeah, Sylvester LeVay, which most people may not know that name, but he has worked on many notable 80s movies, including Cobra, Howard the Duck, Fatal Beauty, which I love that movie. If you've never seen Fatal Beauty, it's directed. That is also directed by the same director as Fright Night, Tom Holland. No relation. But he's worked on, Flashdance. He's worked on so many Body Rock, which is a favorite of one of our faithful listeners and friends, Aaron Don Gilmer.
Yeah.
He's worked on a lot of projects that have that kind of great sound. It reminded me a little bit of shades of like Brad Fiedel, who did the Fright Night, obviously. That guitar sound, that classic kind of like, now it's classic, but in the 80s, it was such a quintessential 80s sound to have that blistering electric guitar throughout. Really made it sound cool. Certain scenes sounded sexy. There was an awkward moment where Eric is kissing his girlfriend, who you'll talk about in just a minute, and it's such an awkward moment when he does, and suddenly the guitar just kicks in like wow, wow, and you're like, oh yeah.
Turn that awkwardness upside down.
I love Sylvester LeVay. He's a great composer.
And you know what? The score in this show is fantastic. It's so much fun.
Phenomenal.
And for those of you who are wondering why there is no DVD or Blu-ray for this, and in the States at least, because as we know, our pal Robert Ortiz, he has the French version, I believe. I think you can still get it relatively cheap on Amazon, but of course, it's going to be region whatever, so you have to have a region-free player. But the complete series was to be released by Shout Factory in 2009. But it was canceled due to a music license issue concerning 3 songs. I'm assuming 2 of those songs, because we hear them both in the pilot, is Silent Running by Mike and the Mechanics and Future So Bright I Gotta Wear Shades by Tim Buck 3. I didn't hear what maybe the 3rd song was, but dude, guys, 2 minutes into the pilot, Mike and the Mechanics' Silent Running is playing. I was like, this isn't why it's coming out here ever, because Fox is never going to pay whatever Mike and the Mechanics wants. They're never going to pay for those rights for this song, for this, such a niche show like this. It's just numbers. They're going to crunch the numbers and going to be like, project how many people are going to buy this DVD Blu-ray set versus how much it's going to cost to get the rights to these handful of songs. And yet again, this show will disappear into history because of fucking music rights.
Like the only show that one of the few shows that can survive because of music rights is Miami Vice. It's one of the few shows that just, because it was popular enough to garner the studio to shell out some money. But
yeah.
like I don't besmirch Mike and the Mechanics for getting some well-deserved dough. But come on, Fox, you got the money, do it.
It's Disney now, so.
Or Disney, come on, Disney, you do it.
Yeah, I mean, because. Even, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, and even a show that was really popular, Moonlighting, has the same issues. Like, it hasn't been released on streaming, which we found out today. So,
Diallo and I were talking. We're like, well, I don't know how it came up, but yes, Diallo and I both discovered at the same time that Moonlighting is not on streaming, which is funny because I actually really wanted to rewatch that show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, they're rebooting it, so you're unfortunately rebooting that.
Fuck
and
that noise.
Way back in the day, like a few years ago, I was rewatching Quantum Leap, and it was on both Netflix and Hulu. And I remember watching it on Hulu, I think it was, and they didn't even have the first episode. And I found out it was because it had music on it that they didn't have the rights to. So I went to Netflix that had the entire series. And I know that they've changed. I think they changed some music on an episode as well. That's kind of key to the show. I think it was Georgia on My Mind, and it was a key to a moment, and they had to change it. So, music rights are, like Zach said, they should all get paid, but it's sad that we have to kind of miss out on hundreds of hours of content for 3 minutes, if that, of a song.
So let me ask you this. Would you guys prefer, like, for them to do it like they did with Supernatural, the first couple seasons of Supernatural, which is take out all the AC/DC and the Boston songs and replace it with horrible Muzak versions of them? But the show is still out, but it has kind of like, it's a little bit neutered. Or would you just prefer it to just disappear unless we have the correct version?
I am a correct version person, because I think that those moments are tied into your feelings about something.
Yep.
It's just the same thing with the score. You could replace a score to a movie, to Star Wars or Superman, it wouldn't be the same movie. I would prefer, and I remember way back in the day when they first were having bosom buddies in syndication, and they didn't have the "This Is My Life" song on it, and they had some other random opening music to it, and it took away from it because that opening music was a part of my memory of the show, and so I still watch the show every time. But it was just, and I was so young, I didn't realize why they changed it, but that was why.
That was when I watched Married with Children on Crackle, like probably about 7 years ago or something. They didn't have the Love and Marriage opening song because I guess they didn't get the rights for it. And I was like, well, I'm turning this off because this is garbage. Yeah. And it was just some generic trying to sound like that song type of thing.
Yeah, that's
One of my biggest complaints was always with music for wrestlers coming out to the ring, because they would come out to one of the biggest hooks for a wrestler was his or her theme song, right, as they came down the aisle. And when the WWF turned to WWE and they released all these old matches, I got so excited because the Road Warriors used to come out to Iron Man, and Flying Brian Pillman used to come out to Rocket by Def Leppard, and the fabulous Freebirds would come out to Freebirds, and they cut all of that with this generic like house music. Sting used to come out to a Metallica song, and it's like everything got changed to this just generic, just stock footage music, and it totally ruined the excitement of seeing this person come down the ring. It just totally changed the whole thing. So yeah, I'm on board. It's like all or nothing. If you're gonna do it, great, do it with the music. If not, don't give me Dawson's Creek without that Paula Poundstone song, whatever her name is. Paula Cole. Yeah, Paula Poundstone too.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, because I remember when they first started, like I was able to watch Saturday night's main events again, and they didn't have, they had that sort of stock music that they used towards the end of the run of the show, but they didn't have the stuff from the You Are an Obsession that was, like, again, an integral part of the experience of watching Saturday night's main event. And for me, like, music is so important. It's so funny how they will just casually, it feels like, cut it out.
And expect us not to notice, you know?
Yep.
But
or
everyone
expect
does.
us not to give a shit.
Right, exactly. And I'll just tie it all up. I'm exact same way you all are. It's all or nothing. I want the correct version, or I'm never going to watch it. That's why I'll never watch Supernatural. Sorry.
I've never seen that show, but oftentimes when I go to the gym, it'll be on one of the TV screens. And I was watching one where they blew up this woman's head. Like she was like an FBI agent or something. They look like a Saw kind of room where they're all stuck in a room with some devil looking dude. And he blew up her head. And I'm like, they blew up her head? Holy shit. That's a shocker.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But everybody's clothes look so clean. I'm like, if you're on the road all the time, 24/7, your clothes are not going to look that clean.
No.
Case in point. Look at, who does that so well is Phantasm 2. Look at Mike and Reggie. They've been on the road. They look weathered. That's how you do it. Thank you, Don Coscarelli. Or it's Eric Cord. You lose your clothes.
Right? There you go. Bring it back to Werewolf.
Bring him, and then you pull clothes off a telephone wire.
There you go. All right. Before we jump into the pilot, We have some fun things for you all this episode. We have some voicemails from across the BFOP network and from some podcasting friends of ours talking about some of their favorite Halloween nostalgic memories from their childhood, specifically TV stuff and everything. So let's listen to a few of them now.
Hey, it's Adam from Cartwright to Seinfeld podcast, Blast from Our Past podcast, and Throwback Trivia Takedown. And one of my absolute favorite Halloween episodes from any TV show is Who Got Dee Pregnant from season 6 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I know this is not your typical scary type of episode, but it is hilarious. It fits perfectly with the Always Sunny crew. I love that you get a lot of cameos. You get the McPoyles in this one. You also get Dee gradually turning further and further into a bird with each and every story that's being retold onto who might have gotten her pregnant. The idea of, was it Charlie or Mac or Dennis that got her pregnant? It's insane, and it is funny as fuck. So that one stands as just one of the best episodes and a great episode of Always Sunny in general.
Hey guys, this is Tim from Talking Back. I have lots of things I like to watch during the Halloween season, but if I could only watch one thing, it would definitely be Garfield's Halloween Adventure. When I was younger and Halloween was close, I'd grab the TV guide, I'd find out exactly when this special was going to air, and I'd definitely be there to watch it. I own it now on DVD, so I can watch it anytime I want, but I always save it for Halloween night. It's a really fun story. It's got a catchy tune in it. There's lots of great jokes. And I only recently realized it's based on John Carpenter's The Fog. I joined up with you guys to talk about The Fog on your Carpenter walkthrough series on Patreon, and I hadn't seen it before and was very excited to see that it had influences on Garfield's Halloween special. I thought that was really cool. I would recommend Garfield's Halloween Adventure to anybody. It's an all-time classic. It won an Emmy. It's a perfect addition to any Halloween watch list. I hope you guys will check it out and hope you have a great Halloween season.
Hey, this is Dean from Return, Revenge, Resurrection, and my favorite episodes of The Simpsons were always the Treehouse of Horror episodes. Being a kid who didn't watch any horror movies, I loved when The Simpsons parodied horror because it made me feel like I now knew about those movies. And one of my favorite Treehouse of Horror episodes was in the Treehouse of Horror 5 called The Shinning, which is a parody of The Shining. This episode felt even more bloody and violent than the previous episodes, which makes it stand out, but it was also absolutely hilarious. From Homer saying, "No TV and no beer make Homer something something," to the blood coming out of the elevator and Mr. Burns saying, "That's weird, the blood usually gets off on the second floor." I just was laughing through this whole thing. I loved every single second of this one. And then seeing The Shining later in my life, it made it even more funny from all the things they were parodying. From our podcast to you, have a happy Halloween.
All right, Werewolf, the pilot episode. Grad student Eric Cord becomes infected with lycanthropy after his friend turns into a werewolf and attacks him. Now Eric and his girlfriend are after the monster that infected his friend, and a tough cowboy bounty hunter pursues Eric. That's pretty concise. I do want to call out a couple actors and actresses that are in this episode that don't appear in the rest of the series before we sort of go on. First off is his friend, Ted, who's technically the first werewolf in the show. He actually is the one that has the lycanthropy and everything, and we'll talk about in a second, sort of what goes on in this episode. But he's played by Raphael Sbarge.
Yep.
I kind of know him from Once Upon a Time. He played Jiminy Cricket in Once Upon a Time, that series from 2011 to 2018. But he was also in Risky Business as well, and a shit ton of other stuff. But I'll always recognize him as once. There you go, My Science Project.
My Science Project is one of my favorites of his.
Okay.
He did a lot of LucasArts voices. Rogue Squadron, Grim Fandango. I think he did Roughnecks episodes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a prolific actor.
Knights of the Old Republic. Ugh. Karth
So
Onasi. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
We have in a very, very sort of small role, John Quaid plays this kind of surly storage unit owner type of thing, but I always know him from Every Which Way But Loose. He's got that look. He was also in Hunter as well, but if you see him, you'd recognize him.
Quaid.
He creeps me out because he looks like this, like, I'm sorry, but he looks like a scummy, like, pedophile.
He does
like,
have that
who wants to
vibe.
get all up on your shit. Like, come on over here and talk to your Uncle Jesse for a second. Come sit on his lap. Come here. I just want to... What? My finger didn't mean to go in there. What's wrong? Come on.
He definitely has that look about him.
So gross. So he's
rem-
good. He's a good actor.
I actually remember him from an episode. When I saw him, he was in this, to me, classic two-parter episode of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. He was like a kind of a strongman bounty hunter type with a group of other mutants that were chasing
That
Buck.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice. And he was in Chips and one. He's been in a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah.
He was in Battlestar Galactica as well. In a very tiny, tiny microscopic role that I didn't even realize was him. In the beginning of this episode, as the first victim, we have Lyndon Ashby, famously as Johnny Cage in the first Mortal Kombat. I didn't even recognize him because when I was watching this episode on my phone, it was too small and too dark for me to. I saw it was a guy and a girl, and that's all I knew.
I knew him as Dr. Brett Cooper from Melrose Place, but that's,
Yeah, me too.
that's how I roll.
Me too.
Hey,
Same.
I've got
Same-
no
same
shade. I got no shade against Melrose Place. I watched that show probably from the very first episode.
Yeah.
I would say almost to the end. I remember when what's her nuts with the red hair took off her wig and she had her scarred head and everything.
What's
yeah.
her nuts?
Dude, I watched all of
I
Melrose
saw her in the
Place.
CVS by my house one time. It was wild.
Oh my God! You say take off your wig? Let me see your burned head. She's like, are you making a Melrose Place reference in 2020?
Don't do it. She was more famous for Desperate Housewives by that
Yeah.
point, but still,
Yeah,
that would have
yeah.
been hilarious.
Apparently, Lyndon Ashby's been in a shit ton of stuff. He
Yeah.
was in that Teen Wolf series too.
Yeah, dude's
Yeah.
been working. But he'll always be Johnny Cage to me.
I remember seeing him in that Resident Evil Extinction movie, and I was like, "Oh, he's the highlight," and that's it. Well, that's done.
If he's your highlight, I don't want to throw any shade at Lyndon Ashby.
No.
I love the man.
How about his girlfriend in that? Well, the girl he was dating. Well, the girl he picked up from the club in that.
Sure, call her out, buddy. What do you know her
Gail
from?
O'Grady.
was
Gail
hot.
O'Grady was on NYPD Blue. I mean, that was, and she was on. Actually, she's been in a ton of stuff from the '80s till now. If you look her up.
Oh yeah, she was on. She was on
Very.
NYPD Blue for like 9 or 6 years or something.
Yep, she had an infamous, quote unquote nude scene
Oh,
David Caruso did back in the day, and,
Yep.
and that was like a big claim to fame on that show. They were pushing the envelope, right? But no, she's a tremendous actor. Big fan of hers. And
She was on
I love.
Desperate Housewives.
Was she?
Yeah, she had a few roles.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
a few episodes.
Good old,
Right on.
Good old Werewolf, bringing people together.
Yeah.
One more smaller one, and then I'm going to end with the bigger name. We have as the bail bondsman Ethan Phillips,
my
who
boy.
I know as Neelix from Star Trek Voyager.
That's my boy.
I know him from Benson.
Yeah, I know him from Benson
Benson.
and Neelix. Yeah,
I used to watch Benson. Holy shit, I forgot he was
Yeah.
in that.
he ended
Oh
up
my
with the secretary woman,
Yep.
right? Whatever. I can't remember.
I used to
her
love
name.
that show.
Yeah.
Benson used to
watch
be
the show all
one
the
of those shows that I fucking loved back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Was it because
man.
we loved it, or was it because there was nothing else on?
You
No,
never know.
it was because it was amazing. And don't even start.
I love Robert Guillaume.
Don't even start.
And finally, saving the best for last.
You sure are.
She's only in the pilot, but she plays a big role. She plays Eric Cord's girlfriend, and is also Ted's sister too. But Kelly Nichols, played by Michelle Johnson, who I know recently from Waxwork, because you and I talked about that. It's probably a year ago now. Good Lord, time flies. But Zach, throw out some more places we everyone podcasting After Dark listeners should know her from, besides Herman's Head.
Diallo and I know her from Waxwork, and I'm not going to say how long we lasted in the Waxwork screening, but she was at a screening of Waxwork at the Egyptian Theater. But my God, back in the day, she was on so many straight-to-video type movies. Usually, she typically played the sultry, sexy femme fatale. Definitely has shades of Marilyn Monroe in her. She has, even the way she talks, like, and I mean that in the most respectful way. I don't mean like she's copying Marilyn Monroe. And there's just a quality about her where I'm like, why this woman should have been like in more mainstream stuff. But she was in Blame It on Rio. That was like maybe her first big movie she ever did. And you know, if you go and search her role in Blame It on Rio, make sure your kids are not around because it's definitely NSFW. But she's been in a bunch of stuff, like this Gung Ho. She's
you and I were
Charles
just talking about Gung Ho, bro.
We were just talking about Gung Ho. But you know, she was in a great episode of Tales from the Crypt with Brian James, who plays like a psycho. He's like her psycho boyfriend, and she shows her tremendously her assets in that as well.
She could have been on Game of Thrones, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. She could have been on Game of Thrones. I mean, I love how they list Death Becomes Her as a second movie she was in, but she's been in so many other things back in the day.
She was in A Melrose Place also for a couple episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think she was on there for like a year on Melrose Place, and she was on we were just talking about Moonlighting.
Yeah, and really quick, if you've never seen it, because it's not a bad like straight to video thriller. It's called Body Shot. It came out in 1994. Robert Patrick is in it. Ray Weiss is in it. Jonathan Banks is in it. It's got a really, really great cast, and she's the second lead. She plays again like a femme fatale kind of character in that movie. So check out Body Shot.
She was in The Glimmer Man with Keenan Ivory Wayans and Steven Seagal.
Body Shot.
Glimmer Man. God damn it, Glimmer Man. Me and my buddies made fun of that movie so hard back in the day, dude.
Oh, I totally forgot about that movie. Oh, man.
So the pilot episode, 2 hours long. I'll just give a sort of a brief play-by-play. I'll go through it really quick, and then we'll just talk about it in general. The episode opens with a couple getting killed in a Volkswagen VW Bug after a club. And you see, a werewolf comes blasting through the windshield, and it's a really great shot of the werewolf's head and everything. Then we immediately start learning about, Eric Cord and his girlfriend and their family and everything. We find out that his roommate is her brother, and Ted is the one that was doing all the killing. He's the werewolf. So he ties himself up, gives Eric a gun, and says, hey, at midnight, I'm going to turn, and I want you to kill me, because they established the only way you can kill a werewolf is they either kill themselves, another werewolf kills them, or a silver bullet kills them. That's the only way you could basically not be a werewolf. You find out later that you can also sever the bloodline. If you can kill the head of whatever that bloodline is, who, made the person in front of you, yada, 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 you can basically free everybody in that bloodline. His friend Ted turns, attacks Eric. Eric gets sort of bit and cut up, so he's obviously infected, but he kills Eric. He shoots him dead. Winds up on trial for that, which I appreciated that this episode didn't just jump into, him being on the run and everything, but they actually have a trial. He has to, basically put up his car for bail and everything, and that's why there's a bounty hunter after him. Him and his girlfriend then go track down Janos, the guy played by Chuck Connors, who they think is the one that turned Ted into the werewolf, and if they kill him, they will free Eric. A fight ensues, yada, yada, yada. The episode ends with the girlfriend goes her separate ways, and then Eric is basically becomes, the fugitive, Bruce Banner. He's just hitchhiking from town to town to town and everything. Real quick, I do apologize. I did want to talk about the director of the pilot episode before we jump into general discussions. The director is David Hennings. He is a huge actor from the 60s. Blow Up, Barbarella, Deep Red. You even saw him in Gladiator as Cassius. But so many other roles under his belt. Zachary Diallo, throw some more out at us.
I mean, you named Blow Up. I went to theater 3 years ago and watched that live again, or not live, whatever, by Michelangelo Antonioni, and it's one of my all-time favorite wild ride movies.
It's so good. I watched it. I enjoyed watching it, but I had to watch it in college in film school, and it was definitely one of the movies that I really fucking loved.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of great, like, A-list movies, B-list movies, horror films like Deep Red, great Diallo, and the Harlequin. If you've never seen Harlequin, that is a great cult film as well. I do want to point out he's actually a pretty prolific television director. He directed episodes of Hardball, Raven. Raven was a cool TV series in the early 90s. That'll probably show up on this. On our show, Quantum Leap.
Never heard of it.
Right? He directed 8 episodes of Werewolf. So, Stingray, Murder, She Wrote, The A-Team, so Magnum P.I. You know, he's done a lot of television directing as well.
Very, very prolific. So pilot episode, I'll just give you my thoughts, but we'll be talking about a bunch of different cool shit. Great. It's so much fun. This pilot was fantastic. I think the music was amazing. The action was awesome. The werewolf looked great. The pacing was really good. I think it sets you up for what's coming in the series. I think it's a prime example of how to do a pilot right. Diallo, give us some thoughts on the pilot.
It was kind of interesting to me because it was a lot more slow and brooding than I would have expected for that era. Instead of like kind of pushing along, it kind of sat and explained thoroughly his background and character. I think it was good for the length of the series. I felt like it slowed down the pilot a little bit, but nothing major. But anyways, I think that the pacing to me was actually anything that I would see like on a regular or original series on Netflix or something. It just, I'm going to bring up Midnight Mass, which everybody loves, and I actually can't stand, but it actually kind of matches, to me at least, that the sort of like deliberate broodingness, and I thought it actually was pretty effective because I actually connected to the character pretty deeply by the end because I really understood where he was coming from and the dilemmas he had. And I also really appreciated it was a little bit more complex. I think you just brought it up a little bit, but it was a little bit more complex of how he ends up on the run. It wasn't just like they could have just sent him off on the run right when his roommate dies, but
yeah. That's kind of like what I was expecting to happen, you know?
Yeah, but there was more to it than that, and I actually really appreciated that.
Seeing a little bit of a trial. Like I feel like they didn't. It was only like maybe a 5-minute scene, him in the courtroom and everything. So they didn't show you like any kind of full trial or anything. But I thought the dialogue was fun. It's just his lawyer is like, this, it's just a hearing. He's like, yeah, it's just a hearing where I'm getting sentenced for murder. His lawyer's like, oh, but it's okay. There'll be bail, that you'll post bail, yada, yada, yada. I was like, they didn't have to do any of this, but I like that they did because it helped me as a viewer become more endeared with Eric Cord and his plight and everything.
It helped him maintain his relationship with the girlfriend, and made it plausible that she would, assuming the show would go on for seasons, that there would be that opening for them to meet up again and get back together. So there's that, like, I need to get back home to her. But also it added a layer of complexity for the bounty hunter, Lance LeGault's character, who, understood that this was a werewolf, but he also was just tasked to do a job. So he sort of like was an antagonist, but he wasn't the villain, and that set that up too, because I think he gets hired by
He gets hired by Neelix. He pretty much gets hired by Neelix. You never see Neelix after the first episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bounty hunter is still pretty much in it. Zach, what are your thoughts on the pilot?
Yeah, Neelix is out $90,000
He is. Holy shit.
because Eric has to put his sweet Mustang up for collateral with the bail bondsman so he can go free, which I thought was cool too. I thought I liked the courtroom drama. I know it felt, part of me was like, I feel like they're padding this episode a little bit for the pilot, but it makes sense. Like that's kind of what would happen in real life. His lawyer, by the way, Rudy, who's played by Robert Krantz, that guy, if you look up his resume, he's been in a bunch of stuff. He's working to today, actually. But he reminded me a little bit of that actor Keith Gordon, just in the way he talked.
Yeah.
Just like this kind of nerdy kind of way.
Yeah.
But a few things I noticed overall in the pilot that stood out to me was the opening. Having the like today's pop music playing, the silent running was really cool in that club. And then I noticed that there was like one black guy in the club, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's 80s TV for you. Like everybody's
80s.
white with their big hair.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then I love that I kept calling him Johnny Cage, Lyndon Ashby, when he goes out to his VW with his girl. He's like, she's so into him, and I know it was totally meant to be taken this way, because she's like, oh my God, you're like president of your company or something like that, and he's driving a VW, like a beat up VW convertible Bug, and I'm like, yeah, well, I don't think the president of the company of this big shot would be driving kind of a beat up Beetle. Who knows? Maybe he's a classic car kind of guy. But then they dropped a Tim Thomerson reference, which I thought was pretty dope too. In that first like 5 minutes of the pilot, Michelle Johnson.
I heard that. What? How did it go again?
Because Tim Thomerson was the head of he was the president of a company or something.
That's right.
Like
Yeah. Lyndon Ashby was like, "Oh, I'm not the president. It's Tim Thomerson or something." But yeah, he mentions Tim Thomerson,
like
and
that.
Literally my head just I look up, I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
I rewound it. I was like, "Did you just name drop Tim Thomerson?"
So great, and this is gonna sound, it is what it is, but seeing Michelle Johnson in the bathing suit in the pool scene, I was like totally okay with that.
Of course,
as a kid, because I recorded this pilot back in the day on VHS, and I think I rewound that scene quite a few times because I was just like, I was coming into my own,
I mean, when they kissed, it I had a sad feeling in my heart, because I was like, look at that love.
Yeah, it felt genuine.
I want love like that.
Without the werewolf aspect of it.
Yeah.
I want a 6-pack like Eric. I do have that. But yeah, no. The episode, the pacing overall, I think was fine. The way the mythos of the werewolf, I think, was explained very intelligently, in a really cool way, and I really loved. I think this is the show. This is the first time I maybe had the realization that you could kill the start of the bloodline to free yourself from the curse.
I think this show started it, actually.
Did it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, in my head now is like a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, so I feel, I mean, if it is, makes it even more special. This show is more special for that reason. But I just, there was a couple moments that stood out to me also, like when there's a great kind of nightmare scene where Eric it has a vicious nightmare, which is intense. And the kind of cop that's monitoring his hospital room is such a scumbag. He looks like a total stunt double for Mark Ruffalo, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that Mark Ruffalo? No.
We don't like
but
that guy.
Right. He was such a scumbag to Kelly, and he's like hitting on her, and I didn't think, at first I thought, oh, they're just going to glaze over this, but Kelly like calls him out on it, which I thought was pretty awesome. And yeah, I was wondering where I had forgotten what happened to her character, and I was hoping she wouldn't be killed. So knowing that she didn't get killed, maybe potentially down the road her character could come back. Perhaps I would have liked to have seen that. They didn't go that route, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But like you guys both said, The Fugitive, The Incredible Hulk, shades of the guy on the run. That's a very kind of old-fashioned trope, but it works.
It does.
And
yeah,
the A-Team, like
it's
Lupo,
great.
And
even
and
though
I
like
loved
Knight Rider, he's not on the run. It always had that kind of same vibe because he's going from town to town doing his thing.
Yeah, he's still an outlaw, so to speak.
Yeah. So two things I want to bring up here. A couple effects stuff. Let's talk about the fact that whenever one of these characters transforms into a werewolf, their hand gets this bloody pentagram on it. And I just remembered in my head that, it was probably something as simple as just having some blood in the shape of a pentagram on their hand. But they did some cool shit in this pilot where blood actually starts like bubbling out of the pentagram and whatnot. Very, very good effect on the pentagram on the hand, which is probably something most people do remember. But I gotta call out when the bad guy, Chuck Connor's character, finally transforms into a werewolf in the final fight of the pilot. I love his transformation because he grabs the skin of his upper mouth and his lower mouth and rips his own face off to let the werewolf come out from underneath. It sounds like you're like, oh, well, I'm sure that was cheesy. It wasn't. It was
wild.
Well shot. It was well lit. It was well done. Thank you, Rick Baker. I don't know if he actually worked on this effect, but maybe someone who worked under him did. But my point is, I love that. And we've seen like werewolves like shed their skin, all kinds of different stuff. I've never seen one of them pull their own face back, like back from their mouth as the mouth comes out. Awesome. And sadly, I don't really recall seeing anything that good in the rest of the series as far as transformations go. But for the pilot, man, that gets you going right out of the gate.
I wonder if they do that in that movie, A Company of Wolves. I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah, and by the way, they just announced a 4K Blu-ray of that. Last time I watched Company of Wolves was probably in late 90s, I think. And famously on the cover, there's the wolf sort of coming out of the guy's mouth, and it's similar to that. But I don't remember. This felt unique to me. The way Chuck Connor's character transformed Janos, this felt very unique to me.
Oh, totally. I agree. It was shocking. His reveal was so intense. It's such a shame that they, for whatever reason, all the reasons that you listed, he couldn't be a part of the show because he's such an intimidating actor and character. I had it in my head that he was on the show for every episode.
Me too.
And I did what Diallo did too. I kind of got Alamo Joe and him mixed up from time to time. I'm like, wait, is the bounty hunter a werewolf too? I forgot. I'd forgotten all that stuff, but I just remember he being a big part of the show too. So yeah, it's a bummer. But Lance LeGault as the bounty hunter is so great. He's so evil, or not evil, but he's so intimidating. And I love that he wears his sunglasses at night too, because he don't give a shit.
No, not at all.
One of the things I actually appreciate or really liked about this, the approach to the werewolf is how it goes back to that pentagram. Mm-hmm. I keep wanting to call it a pentagon.
That's same thing, probably.
Thing.
It's a conspiracy, man.
Werewolf I always I love the idea of werewolf stories, but I always feel like they're really hard to do because they have a sort of a unique problem where the antagonist or the protagonist is also usually a mass murderer. So it's how do you tell that story? And they were able to sort of weave some stuff in where his subconscious was able to be in control, and they set that up with his roommate, but they also the roommate also says like after a while he's having trouble controlling it, and that's why he wanted to like, off himself. And that set up a potential arc for the show. Never got to get there, but over time you can imagine they would have had him struggling with his ability to like not like outright murder people that didn't deserve it. And also they decoupled it from the phases of the moon, so which was just like I mean I still feel like they should have tied it to the moon somehow, but just being able to like be more free in telling the stories and having the transformations instead of like the logistics of having it once a month it wouldn't have quite worked with him on the road and always like encountering things that he would need to transform given the circumstances rather than time of year.
Yeah, because that would almost force you to make it so that 29 episodes is essentially 29 months.
Yeah.
And and he's like, he would have to like literally grow. I'm with you. I like the decoupling, but I didn't like the fact that they were like, oh, it's just got nothing to do with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was like still somehow connected, but still kept that same vibe of being that it happens whenever.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's as a given, I think that he should have to transform during the full moon.
No matter what. That should have been a thing no matter what. Or if anything, make it when he does have a full moon, that's when he can't control anything.
Yeah.
That's when his subconscious is completely gone and he's pure evil. And then you could have the finale episode, be on a full moon and he's actually attacking people that he cares about and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to get this
rebooted.
Yeah, and I'll chime in too and say that I typically am not a huge fan of werewolf movies. However, like I love The Howling, I love
Teen
Dog
Wolf.
Soldiers.
You like Teen Wolf?
I love Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf 2.
Actually, I do like a lot of werewolf movies. I'll take that back. I don't like a lot of the more mainstream ones. Like I was not a huge fan of the Jack Nicholson Wolf movie.
No,
It wasn't.
I did not.
mean, it just wasn't. That wasn't a good movie.
No, it had James Spader in it, which was cool. But and I did not like the Benicio del Toro film. And quite often when big budget studios do werewolf movies, it's not good. But low budget or indie stuff like Bad Moon, Dog Soldiers.
Spoiler alert, Bad Moon might be in your stack.
Nice.
I love that movie, by the way.
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Based on a book called Tor, where famously in the book, the entire book's told from the perspective of the family dog, which is
directed
interesting.
by Eric Red.
Yep.
Of the Hitcher fame. But I think indies typically do it better. But a Silver Bullet, obviously, I feel like Silver Bullet's an independent film, more indie because it's like doesn't have that big lead actor in it. Corey Haim was big, but he wasn't like it's not Jack Nicholson or Benicio del Toro at the time.
Yeah, like B plus movies. You're saying.
Yeah,
B plus movies. Yeah. Thank you.
Spoiler alert! You might also have Silver Bullet in your stack too.
Shit, it's gonna be a wolfy
Guys,
winter.
I might have to
by the
come over
way-
when you watch Silver Bullet, Zach.
We'll gladly have you come over.
I everything I've learned about being an uncle, I learned from Gary Busey in that film.
Me too.
Me
too.
I love werewolves, but I am very particular. I do not like the Lon Chaney style, wolf style,
Yeah,
Jack
me too.
Nicholson, the snubbed nose, the short nose. I love long snout, long ears, standing up on 2 feet with the backwards legs and everything. The Howling, Dog Soldiers, Bad Moon. These are the werewolves I love, and fucking Werewolf. I know he's on 4s most of the time, and I think it actually looks cool, but the way his face looks is exactly the kind of werewolf that I love. And that's probably Rick Baker, doing that.
I'm just gonna say one more thing is that I typically don't like the werewolf story because it falls into the Hulk category where it's like this one guy, on the lam or whatever, having to fight against his demons. That's typically not, I don't find that appealing for a horror film. I feel it's more into the drama category. And maybe that's why I liked Werewolf more, because it was a network show, which even action shows tend to go more drama, right? So back in the 80s at least. So I was kind of down for it being a melodrama different, and it shook it up every week. It was a little bit different versus a 2-hour movie where it's like, I was just trying to fight my demons and tie me up, and oh my God, I love this woman, and it's so
like every single week, type of thing. It would
arguably the Hulk doesn't work either with that setup. So they've over the years they have abandoned that whole running from his demons, and they've only made one movie. I know it's partly because of rights with Universal, but it's hard to tell that story. It's just hard. Yeah. Like he has to be you show up to see the Hulk or you show up to see the werewolf, but you have to spend most of the time with the normal guy doing
exactly
kind of boring stuff. So it's hard to tell those stories and be compelling. So it's always they have to be clever with it, and it works when you have a certain take or premise in a movie sometimes, but for a TV show, I think they found the right way to do it here.
And at 30 minutes, you don't have to wait long to get to the werewolf in this show. Before we jump into the next episode, I do want to call out the fact that Alamo Joe has a really cool sort of voiceover at the beginning of the episode, and then a voiceover at the end. It's a kind of like the same voiceover, but it bookends the entire pilot. I'm not going to talk about what it is. What I am going to talk about is the fact that he talks about growing up, Zach, in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. And right when I heard that, I look up and I go, Suzuki Samurai, you Bensonhurst piece of shit. From Fort Fairlane. I fucking love that line. Anytime I hear Bensonhurst, that's exactly what I think of.
And I'm looking at him like, are you a fucking midnight cowboy, dude? You grew up in Brooklyn with your cowboy hat? Come on now. We're all over the place with this shit. But it still works. Because he's funny.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Neelix kind of had like a New York vibe to him, but this was clearly L.A. and everything.
Yeah, he was talking like he normally talks, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't. He was like, I'm just going to be me on this one.
Yeah.
And that was the very cliche thing back in the 80s and 90s. It was like, hey, it was like this exaggerated way of talking, and like, wait, but are you, because Eric sounds like he's from Canada. Oh, no, Chicago. He had a very thick Chicago accent.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Before Zach talks about To Dream of Wolves, parts 1 and 2, let's hear some more Halloween nostalgia from our friends.
Hi, guys. It's Dustin from $2 Late Fee, America's favorite 80s movies podcast in America. Anyway, my favorite Halloween moment is from the show Small Wonder, the show with the robot girl who...
Hey, Dustin, do you want to play ping pong?
Oh, hey, Satan. Actually, now's not a great time. I'm just leaving a voicemail for the Podcasting After Dark guys, the TV Obscura show.
Oh, I love that show. Is that the one that runs 4.5 hours?
Listen, can we just chat when I'm done here?
You left the toilet seat up again, by the way.
Yeah, I was meaning to ask, why do you feel the need to pee sitting down all the time? I mean, you're the devil. Isn't that a little weird?
Your face is a little weird.
All right, guys, I gotta go. Happy Halloween.
Hey, Zach and Corey. Are you guys home?
It's us, Chelsea and Tess from the Nerd Twins.
Our mom said it's okay if we come over and watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark with you. Is that still okay?
Okay, let us know and call us back at Nerd Twins Pod on Instagram, okay?
Yeah, let us know. Okay, we'll be waiting. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, this is Charlie with Give Me Back My Action Movies.
And Nate with Give Me Back My Horror Movies.
Hey, Nate, being that it's the Halloween season, what's some of your fondest memories of Halloween specials when you were a kid?
Dude, being a 90s kid, The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror.
Classic.
Every year, could not wait for the next one.
Anyone in particular?
There's an episode where Homer gets a monkey's paw that cracks me up because the Frogurt is also cursed. What about you, man?
Garfield's Halloween Adventure. Him and Odie go trick-or-treating. Garfield's dressed up like a pirate. Odie's dressed up like a ghost. They keep running into this weird stuff that keeps happening, and then there's an entire sequence with pirate ghosts, and it scarred me as a kid. To this day, it's still terrifying. Good, wholesome family fun back in the 80s and 90s when you just scare the hell out of your kids.
You were allowed to do it back then.
Absolutely. Enjoy the Halloween season, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
All right, To Dream of Wolves, part 1 and part 2. We chose this one because these two, because they were considered to be the highest rated the most well fan received out of all of the episodes in this series, and for good reason, because this culminates with Eric having his final showdown with Skorzeny. He discovers him in this kind of like feels like it's New Orleans town, and he's followed by a mime throughout, which is very funny and kind of creepy at the same time. But Eric is introduced to a character named Diane, who's a photographer, and she reveals that she knows Skorzeny. He's able to track down Skorzeny's kind of his lair where he basically sleeps, and he finds an old chest, and within that old chest there is like a sword, a cutlass, and he starts flashing back to Skorzeny, or we get a flashback to Skorzeny when he was a pirate on the way back when, and then you realize when Skorzeny first gets bit by a werewolf, and so at that point Eric realizes he may not be the beginning of the bloodline. Finally, Eric tracks down Skorzeny, and he's able to kill him, and it's climactic. He's got they have a first showdown, and then Skorzeny escapes. Eric is able to track him down again, but in the meantime, he steals carboic acid from a street peddler.
Yeah.
As you do.
As most street peddlers would be selling acid on the street. And then he is able to track down Skorzeny again in like a abandoned theater, which had some interesting props. I'll let Diallo bring up what he noticed in that. And they have their final epic battle. He burns Skorzeny's face, which is pretty awesome at first. And then they continue to battle, and he finally does kill Skorzeny with a wooden stake and drives him into, and basically like electrocutes him, sets him on fire.
And did you notice that the wooden stake had like a silver tip on it, like a metal silver tip? So that's why you could use it. I didn't pick up on that at first. I had to kind of rewind it to. I was like, why did the stake kill him? And I was like, oh, it has like a metal silver tip on it.
Yeah. It's that was a cool twist, and that you could see it on there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he electrifies Skorzeny on like a old sound machine. I'm like, oh, they still have power in this abandoned theater. Okay, sure. And I love this because after he kills him, Eric's like, I killed him, and it didn't mean a damn thing because he's not the end of the bloodline, because Eric's hand is still bleeding. He's now friends with Diane. Diane's still alive because he saved her earlier. He has Diane put him in a pit, and when he does this, it's like a cement cell, basically, underground.
Yeah.
It's revealed by Diane, Janos Skorzeny is not the father of all the werewolves, but it is actually Nicholas Remy, played by Brian Thompson, who you meet earlier in the episode. Eric freaks out. She locks him in the cell. You see the mime still there, and that's the end of episode 1. Right? You get a glimpse of Remy early on, but not too much of a reveal. Not too much of a reveal about who he is.
And remember, this was supposed to be 3 parts, so episode 1 was a condensed version, and I'll talk about some stuff that sort of didn't make sense in a little bit, specifically the mime.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll get into that.
I just want to really point out too, really quickly, in the first episode, when you do meet Remy for the first time, you realize that this guy is like, he's like a professor, right? A professor of economics, and he's on like a fast track to being like a senator, like or somebody political.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of power, is what it's implied throughout this whole episode.
And I think at some point they said that he studied talking to dolphins down in Key West with Fisher Stevens, right? Sorry, I just made a deep cut Key West Fisher Stevens show, and Brian Thompson was on it.
Nice, look at you. I thought you were going to make a
blank
Cobra
stares.
reference.
Blank stares.
I guess that's going to be, that's obscure enough to pop up on our show.
What show? What movie was that?
No, it's a TV show
TV
called
show?
Key West. Neither of you guys watched Key West?
No.
Oh shit! Yeah, okay, guys and gals.
I
love
like,
that show.
It's familiar, but
Fisher Stevens, Key West. I will be bringing that to TV Obscura one of these days.
You bring Key West. I'll bring North Shore with Rick Springfield.
There you go.
I think it's called North Shore. It's like something like that. Anyways, it's a beach show with Rick Springfield, but it was filmed in Australia.
One
but it's
West
supposed to be
Waikiki.
There you go. Hey, guys
There
and gals,
see,
we just figured one out.
Yeah, so Diane through this episode was like supposed to be Eric's friend. It's revealed at the end that she's also a werewolf. So that's a big plot twist at the end as well. And I love the part 2 picks up right where it kind of it's like a Doctor Who type episode where they give you the last 5 minutes of the last episode in the beginning of the episode, right? So they show the showdown once again, Eric killing Skorzeny. And then from there, Eric is able to break out of this cell. He kills the mime, thank God. And you're introduced to a new police officer played by Ron O'Neal of Superfly fame. And also Red Dawn, of course. And now Eric is on the hunt to track down Remy and Diane. He tracks them down and he tries to kill Remy, but Remy's too powerful. Diane is also going to kill Eric, but Eric's able to like basically convince her that she's not, that she shouldn't kill, like that she shouldn't be controlled by Remy. And she turns on Remy, but Remy slashes her throat. And at first I thought she died, but it turns out she's not dead yet. You get flashbacks of Remy's backstory. At one point, he alludes to basically starting the Nazi party.
Yeah.
He's been around since the dawn of time. They show a big statue of Jesus, and you're thinking, okay, has he been around since, like, when Jesus was nailed up on a cross, allegedly?
Kind of got shades of Demon Knight from that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm not really giving away stuff from the episodes that I'm doing, but he actually goes into his run, I guess, and he said I think it was like 2,000 years old.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, at one point he said to, in the first episode, he says to Skorzeny, Remy does. He says, when we met 60 years ago, and I'm like, 60 years ago, but he was a pirate. That was more than 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it was supposed to be 600 years ago, but he clearly said 60. Anyways,
he also, I'm sorry I had to interrupt, but he also, at one point in that same little spiel he gives, he says that he hasn't, like, it took him 15 years to build the persona that we see now of the history professor, and he was starting to get close to being able to run for Senate, and he says that he hasn't been that close to power since 1914. It was very specific. So just
interesting.
Yeah, so it's just it was interesting to me. Yeah, like he just was kind of going into that a little bit.
And while we're talking about this whole spiel, the one thing that popped out at me is I don't think he was started the Nazi party. I think he was like a part of it or something. But he did agree that he was like, that was a mistake. Like he even back in '87, he was like, no. Even as a horrible, atrocious werewolf, the Nazi party was a mistake. I shouldn't have joined that.
Yeah. But you get the sense that he definitely, I do appreciate that. And he had a big hand in the Nazi party, allegedly, he murdered some like bald.
Yeah, the singer.
The opera singer. And I'm like, is she supposed to be a Holocaust? Is this like a Holocaust?
I thought that was Diane. I thought he made her a werewolf to keep her alive and she grew her hair back.
I don't know that he might have done it to keep her alive. But yeah, he did. He definitely attacked her, and that she became.
But the bald singer is her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's what I took it as. The bald. That's her, and then he transformed her probably to save her. I took it as cancer or something, but maybe she was a Holocaust thing or something.
No, I mean when they panned back, I definitely took it as a Holocaust survivor.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah. So I'll get to my thoughts on this episode in just a second, really quick. But I'll just summarize it by saying that, Eric and Remy have this big final showdown, but it's not a final showdown. Remy survives, Eric survives, and Diane dies, and Remy's building goes up in flames. And that's how the episode ends, with Remy being mysteriously gone and Eric back on the run. And the series continues.
Yeah.
I will say maybe it's the quality of the VHS quality or whatever. I don't know if it's like a rip from a VHS tape, but it's hard to tell sometimes which werewolf is who.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, Eric's running throughout Remy's house and he winds back up in the room that he started in. And you're like, wait, where did he go? It's a little confusing.
Yeah.
It's a little disjointed. I'm going to give it all a pass, though, because I just, again, think the show is so much fun.
Yeah.
And Brian Thompson, like, chews scenery because the guy is so intimidating looking. He's got big-ass hair. I mean, he's scared me ever since Cobra. I think he's one of the most intimidating villains on screen. And he's a great actor, too. Like, he's just really good at emoting. And it's a nice way to kind of kill off Skorzeny's character. I feel like if Chuck Connors had signed a contract and was able to stay on the show, they probably would have kept his character alive at least till the end of season 1 for that to be the finale, not with some, 27 episodes in or 25 episodes in. But yeah, I thought this was I can see why people have voted this to be the best of the series from the ones I watched. It's got some misses. I think the mime is lame. I think the piano man who's like telling the story, he's like telling Eric everything he needs to know, but Eric's not picking up on any of the clues whatsoever. He's like, the one you're looking for is the photographer lady, and that's where the man with the eye patch is. Oh, yeah.
He's even like winking at him, and
Yeah,
Eric's
like,
just
hello?
like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Because Eric's like an idiot now or something.
That mime felt very late 70s movie film like deal. I don't know what it was about it, but it's like late 1970s movies in New York City, and people are doing whatever they're doing, and then there's a mime, and there's always this scene that's like it takes on this otherworldly kind of like significance where the mime teaches or gives some kind of message and then moves along, and it just felt ripped right from that little genre.
Totally.
But the thing is, well, first off, the mime was played by Alex Daniels. Zach, we saw him in Cyborg. He was the titular Cyborg's first, guard that gets killed like at the beginning. Yeah, you like my use of titular, right?
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, I was like, I recognize this asshole's fucking picture, and I was like, Cyborg.
I mean, no, who likes a mime? I'm sorry, who likes a fucking mime?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I literally was like, a mime? I did laugh when he did the pull his pants down.
Yeah, I did too.
That was funny.
So this I was so excited to watch these 2 episodes. I thought while they were fun, I thought they were a bit of a mess, and not knowing at the time what had happened, I read that afterwards. So the mime, like he does stuff throughout the entire episode, and just to basically end up dead at the end. So I think there was something more to the mime, because like they said, they had to condense the first 2 episodes into the first one. And I was like, so what was the point of the mime? There was probably something a lot more to him. I think maybe he worked with Remy or something like that. But what you see here is he does some stuff and it's cool, and he kind of gets Eric to where he needs to go. But then he doesn't he just randomly dies. Like Eric kills him, but it's like off screen. You just find his body. And
it was confusing.
Yeah, it was disjointed and confusing. But overall, like Zach, I give it a pass, because I was like, at the time when I'm watching it, I'm just like, okay, maybe it's just TV stuff. You know what I mean? Like budget, yada, yada, yada. Maybe it's just shit like that. Didn't know that they had to kind of like scramble like 2 days before filming to like, reorganize this episode. But I gave it a pass because overall, It was fun. The finale, you know, how it ends finally between Janos and Eric is cool. I like that. Then of course, fucking Brian Thompson. He's awesome. He's fucking awesome. And I'm happy to have him on the show.
He's now a regular on the series moving forward.
Exactly. And because if we're not going to get Chuck Connors, who I texted both of you guys when I was watching the pilot, it's like, Chuck Connors fucking awesome in this, but you never really technically see him again. If they kept Chuck Connors, I think it would have been strong. And then I think it would have been even stronger to bring Brian Thompson in season 2 or like season 3 or something like that. Like a real heavy hitter. Because, yeah, Brian Thompson's a fucking heavy hitter in this. But the show does take a turn when he enters it. And I feel like it starts going into Highlander territory where it just starts getting bigger and bigger, and I don't know if I would have ultimately liked where it was going, because I did sort of like the smallness of it, but with only 29 episodes and not knowing what it's going to go past that, I enjoyed having like this micro ramp up at the end of the season 1, you know, like in the last, you know, few episodes of the season, we get this cool up ramp with Brian Thompson coming in, kind of like shoots you up and everything. But I do feel like it was probably better saved for another season. But we now know why it happened.
It's so funny you mentioned Highlander, because I actually was thinking about that in a slightly different context. So one of the, like, my impression of, after I was like reading about why Brian Thompson came on, due to Chuck Connors not wanting to continue, was that this was never an intention from the outset, but because of circumstances, they created this plot point, and it actually turned out to be really good and a really like a kind of like a twist. And I know Highlander the series isn't like, you know, highly regarded by very many people, but one of the things I think that it was brilliant at was creating storylines that were compelling, that were based on real world things that were happening, whether like they had to always switch back and forth between France and Vancouver because of their production, so they were able to always like tie that into their stories. Or in the first season, one of the actors passed away, and they actually made that into a very, very compelling storyline that had repercussions across the series. You know, the actor would leave, they would get sick and were pregnant and all this other stuff. One of the other actors left and they killed her, and that it ended up being, you know, all this other stuff. So I think like some, like, all shows have this, but some shows are really good at it. And I actually definitely thought of Highlander when I saw that sequence, because I was like, this is a good instance of sort of like improvising and actually turning out something you would have never thought of on your own at the outset. So it was able to become better. Unfortunately, it came, I think, a little too late, because the show probably was already on the chopping block by the time it aired. But yeah, that's my ramble for the episode, and I'm out.
Well, I think what we saw moving forward, we'll see a trend with so many of these shows that fall into that category of it, just like they have to get super big, you know, and they have to like fill whether it's the network criticizing something or who knows, but it just feels like suddenly like there's this big jump. We got to add all these other characters in. We can just make it bigger, and it's got to be okay. They don't know how to shift. They don't know how to gradually shift the story. It has to be just dramatically shifted. Again, I don't think that's a negative on this show. I think it's cool, like that added a twist where you're like, oh shit, Skorzeny's not the main guy. That's a big reveal, because we're led to believe all along, and then now suddenly it's like, okay, well, at least this new guy is pretty evil looking. And Diallo, fortunately, was able to watch a couple episodes moving forward with him in it, and then unfortunately the last episode does not have him.
Yeah, and I like, they even explain it in through the dialogue between the bounty hunter and the cop, and he's like, I've been tracking Eric Cord all over the country, and he zigzags, he goes everywhere. Then all of a sudden, he made a straight shot down here, and that's why I'm here. And I like that kind of stuff. It almost felt like they were trying to, is probably something like you said, Diallo. It's something they're kind of forced to sort of write, but at the same time, it's how well can they pivot? How well can they, actually, juke and jive and handle the punches that are thrown at them by the studios or by actors who want more money or whatever. Yeah, I think a lot of shows deal with this kind of thing here and there. It's just how well do they do it? And unfortunately, I think we all agree, probably at this point, it was probably too little too late. And then we can, of course, project forward with how, Fox handles properties and everything, how quickly Fox sort of gets rid of things that aren't quite performing the way they want to perform. This is something they've done for a while, so it almost seems like it's something they've done since the very beginning. But like Diallo always tells me, Fox is one of the few networks that will actually greenlight shows. They'll take more chances on shows. They may cancel them quicker, but they take more chances. You told me that years ago, dude, and it changed the way I sort of viewed Fox and how they canceled things. Because you're right, they do take more chances than probably any other network.
Yeah.
Herman's Head.
Herman's Head.
Yeah, Herman's Head. Yeah.
Herman's Head will be popping up on TV Obscura. 'Cause I guess I was glued in front of the TV in 1987 because I remember all the fucking Hetty, Heidi or whatever her name is. I loved her, fucking dude, because she went on to be Ross's ex-wife on Friends.
Yeah.
But ever since, even as a kid when I was watching Friends, even to this day, every time I see her, I'm like, Herman's Head.
Yeah,
Herman's Head. First thing I think. First thing.
Didn't her character play like a lesbian on Friends?
Yeah, Ross's first wife.
That's
she turned out to be a lesbian.
That's why she left or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some forward shit for back in the day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she
Friends
stayed
was so woke.
pretty
Why
regular.
was Friends so woke?
Why were you so woke, Friends?
Yeah, why was Friends so woke yet?
It actually wasn't. But.
No, it wasn't. But they had Jean-Claude Van Damme on there, so that's pretty awesome.
Why was Werewolf so woke?
Oh, by the way, I think the mime was supposed to be like a Renfield type character. Maybe that's, I bet you anything.
That's a good
he was
point,
more
buddy.
Fleshed out.
Yeah, like some kind of, you're right, some kind of familiar, maybe for Brian Thompson, because I don't think he was a werewolf, so maybe he's a familiar with the promise of being a werewolf at some point. That's a good call. That's a good call.
Please, can it be a werewolf? No.
All right. Well, before we jump into the back half of this season, let's hear one more time from our friends across the podcasting verse.
Hi, Zach and Corey. This is Erin of Manic Movie Monday. My most, I think, treasured memory of Halloween specials was when Alice Cooper was on The Muppet Show and performed Welcome to My Nightmare. It actually premiered in 1978, but they always reran it later on for us youngins. And it was just a really cool episode, and it always reminds me of Halloween. Happy Halloween, you guys. Have a great night.
Hey guys, it's David Irons here, friend of Zach and Corey and Podcasting After Dark, writer of Seven Winters Alone, now available on Amazon. I just wanted to chime in and tell you about what do you know what, I'm going to be cheeky and I'm going to give you two, because I don't think anyone's picked the second one, but I've got a funny feeling someone might have picked the first. My first pick for favourite Halloween special is the Punky Brewster Halloween special. It was a two-parter. I saw it in summer, so it was completely out of context because there's nothing Halloween about it. It's just a spooky episode, but we all know what Punky Brewster is. It's pretty light. It's pretty easy to watch. But this thing, the Halloween special, is giant spiders, ghosts with glowing eyes. One of the kids gets stuck in a wall and becomes a demon and pukes goo everywhere. That's something that really affected me as a kid, seeing that. I didn't expect that. You're sitting there, you think, okay, you're going to have Punky Brewster. Someone might get stuck in a fridge at the worst of times. But seeing that, that really pushed it to the limit. And my other pick, I don't think anyone's picked this one, is Highway to Heaven, season 4. An episode called I Was a Middle-Aged Werewolf. As you know, Michael Landon was in I Was a Teenage Werewolf back in the 50s, and he does a send-up of that, and it's worth checking out on Amazon. It's a really nice episode, and it has a really good Halloween feel to it. It really does. It's worth going out there and trying to find. So yeah, I hope you'd like my picks, and check out the Highway to Heaven one. It's pretty good.
Diallo, my man, the finale. Uh-oh.
Oh, God.
So real quick, offline, I love how Diallo texts us. He goes, my episode sucks. I replied, I know. I'm sorry.
If we had known, we would have probably done it a little differently. But I think it worked out perfectly this way. So
yeah. So you also tackled a couple of other episodes that we might not have watched, but so it's a kind of a grab bag free for all. Diallo, handle it however you want, my friend.
Well, I just kind of set it up a little bit. I was actually intent on watching the entire series, but I was. When I was in Hawaii, I just kind of was doing Hawaii things, and I didn't have a lot of downtime, so I didn't really get to it. But I did want.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
I am happy that you had fun in Hawaii. I am happy that you vacationed, and I'm happy that you didn't do work, because we love this show and everything.
Agreed.
But ultimately, it's work, and I'm glad that you chose to vacation instead. I love you, buddy, and I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah, thank you. I did watch an episode of She-Hulk, and I got someone got on my case about that. I was like, Jesus, it was like 25 minutes, and I was just sitting on the couch one moment and watched She-Hulk. Get off my case,
So yeah, because clearly you could not watch an entire season of Werewolf.
But yeah,
Werewolf better than She-Hulk. No.
Oh, you're not wrong.
I haven't watched She-Hulk, so.
I love She-Hulk. But anyways,
I did too. But I'll take Werewolf over.
Yeah,
but I'm not hating on She-Hulk.
I'll take Werewolf over Ms. Marvel.
There you go.
I'm with you there. Okay, so this isn't a crap on the MCU podcast, even though I did watch Thor: Love and Thunder on the way home finally, and anyway, that wasn't that great. Anyways, okay,
no, it wasn't.
That was funny.
It was okay.
The first time.
It was actually
the
okay.
first time. Yeah.
It was okay if you didn't pay for it and you're on an airplane and you waited like 6 months or however long.
True.
Until it came out. Anyway, okay. What are we talking about? Werewolf?
I think so. I don't know.
That's how terrible my episode was. So
Seriously.
I did what initially I was going to do. What we were calling it a finale, but really it's just the last episode. A finale sort of like makes it sound like it's wrapping up stuff, but really the finale to what the show was is To Dream of Wolves parts 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think you're right. Or even better one would be the penultimate one, Grey Wolf.
Yeah, Grey Wolf.
Episode 28.
Yeah, so I watched I watched Amazing. Actually, I didn't watch Amazing Grace right away. I watched Blind Luck right after that, which was the episode right after To Dream of Wolves. In Blind Luck, Eric comes to the aid of a blind woman with a talent for trick shooting he meets while working at a carnival when he learns that her fiancé plans on killing her for the insurance money. The episode description actually is important, I think, because we've been talking about the lore of Werewolf, but there's a completely other aspect to the show, which was it was like a semi-anthology show. So we talked a little bit about how he would, it was a little bit like The Incredible Hulk, Shades of Knight Rider, the A-Team, and but there's that aspect of it, like Burn Notice, where every episode he would find some wayward person in some kind of crisis, and he would help them solve their dilemma. Quantum Leap, another one of my all-time favorite shows, same concept.
The new series you're talking about, right?
I will. If I could punch you through Zoom. I would.
Quantum Leap in the
Quantum
series. Come on.
Leap. Actually, the new Quantum Leap is okay. It's missing some elements.
Yeah, like Scott Bakula.
Like Scott Bakula.
Corey's not saying anything because he doesn't like Scott Bakula.
It's missing magic. That's what it's missing. Talking about music, it's not using any of the musical cues from the original, and it kind of feels flat.
Does he say, oh boy?
He says, oh, and then he doesn't say boy at the end. And then him and his wife have no chemistry, and that's a big, like, they're hinging all of the energy is hinged on that, and it just falls flat for me. But this isn't a Quantum Leap show.
Sorry.
So,
my eyes are glazing over.
No, but it's perfect because, falling off the rails, like the last episode falls off the rails a little bit.
I've been holding that in, and so I had an opportunity to vent about it. So there it is.
I teed it up for you.
But if you've never watched the original, you might actually like the new one, and I'm not going to knock the new one at all because it actually does some things that are kind of cool. Anyways, Blind Luck, it's indicative of what the other parts of the show were, which is actually a large majority of the show, actually. If you think of how the X-Files had two phases of the show. So there's the one part where it was dealt with like the alien story arcs that was specific to Mulder's character arc with his sister and all that other stuff, the conspiracy stuff and the smoking man. But the other part of the show was the standalone monster episodes, which were my favorites. I showed up for the monster episodes, and I would almost groan whenever they had the the story arcs with the alien stuff, because at a certain point it just was kind of got a little like recursive or boring. But
I mean, at a certain point, I'm like, I know we're not going to see any conclusion to this, and the only X-Files I ever cared about were the early ones when the Fluke Man, Fluke Man.
The Fluke Man.
Yeah. The ice episode is the best one.
Oh yeah,
where it's like the thing.
It's the thing.
Yep,
those are great. Those are just like, and
the one where they had to this couple had to like keep driving at a certain speed, otherwise their head would explode or something.
Oh yeah,
that was cool, and that was a fucking cool one, man.
Was that when they moved to back to LA? I think that would have been one of the first episodes when they started shooting in LA again. But anyways, I only bring that up because the show kind of took a tonal change then, but they really threw a lot into those standalone episodes, and that's the strength of X-Files was that. And this show makes an attempt to do that.
So this episode tries to be a standalone episode.
Yeah, so Blind Luck is definitely like one of those, like a standalone, I think he's working at the beginning of the episode, he's like working at the carnival, like kind of
working at a Blockbuster.
Kind of like, kind of like how like, in the Incredible Hulk, he'd be taking odd jobs to kind of like make his way across the country and escape from the law. And that's when he meets the blind woman. And it has she has a little bit of a, like from a character standpoint, there was this piece about her never having ridden a roller coaster. She's blind, and she was just afraid of it. And so the last scene, she had like the courage and strength to get on the roller coaster. It was like an awkward kind of like cut at the end because I kept thinking she was gonna like get decapitated or something, but no, that wasn't what it was. But
I mean, as having not seen the episode, I can now in my head, it's her sitting in the front, a blind lady, I don't even know who it is, and then the werewolf sitting next to her with both their hands, in the air. That's like, what's in my head right now.
Yeah, because it's a werewolf horror show, I actually expected there to be, something dark about it, but actually was like pretty like affirming. And so in that regard, it was like those other like Quantum Leap and like A-Team, Burn Notice, where those people always find some kind of resolution at the end. Shazam,
That was another one where they did that every episode as well. So
does this end with her on the roller coaster going yay, and they freeze on her mouth open, like smiling?
No, not quite. It actually was a view from her. It's from her point of view.
So it's just a black screen then.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh, that's funny.
It was from her point of view. Jesus.
So her point of view, huh? Okay.
You're canceled. I'm canceling you, bro.
No!
That's uncalled for.
And I said it's funny, so I'm basically the douchebag who listened to Trump. Access Hollywood or whatever.
Jesus.
It's really funny though.
It's not funny. She can't see. Anyways, it was from her.
It's fucked up.
It was from her point of view, and the roller coaster, was going through, and it cut.
Going in the tunnel or something?
Just around on the tracks. It was just going up and down around the tracks. And I literally thought she was gonna get decapitated or something, but it just ended. The episode ended. So it ended on a happy note, and that was basically that was the other piece of the show, was him traveling around the country or whatever and kind of running into these people and having some adventures. So they weren't all necessarily tied into this greater story arc with the lore of that the show was starting to set up. And
was this one of the more standalone episodes that you watched, do you think?
So I watched 3. I watched Blind Luck, Grey Wolf, which definitely tied into some background elements of lore, but not with the main elements. And then Amazing Grace, that was completely that was almost like a SNL. It was like, and again, going back to X-Files. So the last episode, I'm gonna skip over Grey Wolf. I actually would like to talk about that one with some reverence.
Versus the mood that we're in right now.
Yeah. But Amazing Grace, the last episode, is a very strange tonal shift. It's very lighthearted.
Yeah.
Comedic. The episode, Eric feels responsible. This description is just wild. Eric feels responsible for an elderly woman who is committed to a mental institution by her daughter after she reports to the police she saw Eric in werewolf form.
In werewolf form. Not that she saw a werewolf. Yeah. She saw Eric in werewolf form. Yeah.
He takes a job as a custodian at the institution to look after her. It's just kind of it's this show, it's this episode, which is basically comedy of errors, lots of hijinks. At one point, towards the end, he turns into a werewolf, and there's the entire mental institution with elderly people are kind of standing there, and she walks up to him, and she's like, "Eric, is that you?" And then and she turns around to all the people. She's like, "It's okay, it's Eric."
And he's still the werewolf that we all know.
Yeah.
So he's snarling and everything. But yet they're like, "No, it's okay." And then he just kind of hops by them. You know?
He runs past them. The music was kind of I don't know.
I know.
And then he runs. And then he runs after the orderlies, and the orderlies "Oh no!" and comedically run into the cell and lock themselves in. Yeah,
it's horrible. It's horrible in its cheesiness. And maybe if it was episode 15 of season 3, it would work. But here it is at the last episode of the season. What a pill to swallow, because I do want to talk about Grey Wolf or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second, because that was infinitely better. The only thing I really have to say about this episode is the balls on the creators to show the werewolf. You see the werewolf suit in full fluorescent light. You know what I mean?
Because the whole room, the hallway is white,
there's
white
no
walls.
shadow.
It's the hospital.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the werewolf, it definitely looks better when it's in shadows, but it doesn't look terrible. And I say they had some gumption to pull this off. And you know what? Good on you guys. Good on you for showing off your work,
Dude, if it was the last
I don't know what their order they actually shot them in or whatever, but if that was their last shoot, they just might have been like, screw it, man. Whatever, it doesn't matter
Fuck it, guys. Fuck it.
Yeah, let's just do this.
But it,
by the way, why did they make the this hospital look like an retirement home? I'm like, is this a retirement home? Like, or is the Grace, they put her in her room and it does not look like a quote unquote
right. Yeah, I mean,
hospital.
It does play like it's a retirement home rather than a mental institution for sure.
Yeah.
And real quick, we got to call out, Grace is played by Billy Bird, who like in the 80s she was the old lady in everything. She was in Home Alone, she was in 16 Candles, she was in Police Academy, she was in just so many fucking movies. Dennis the Menace. She always played the old lady.
Ernest Saves Christmas, I think she was in that.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
She played like the future Mrs. Claus. And let's not also forget the creepy, the doctor played by J. Patrick McNamara, who played Bill Preston's dad in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. And he was also in Warning Sign. I gave that a shout out in the latest $2 late fee episode. But he plays the gross dad with the stepmom.
Yeah,
the
younger stepmom.
Yeah, it's so gross when like he takes her into the bedroom and like where Bill and Ted like are literally next door. They know what's gonna happen with his gross dad with that beard.
Yeah,
gross. Anyways, he plays the doctor. And he's an asshole in this. He plays a good asshole.
He's always an asshole.
He's an asshole.
He's a yo-de-yo.
I'm looking at some of her roles. She's appeared in so many. The Waltons, Eight Is Enough.
Yeah.
She was in a show called It Takes Two, which I vaguely remember with Anthony Edwards, I think, and what's her name from Twister?
Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt, yeah. Yeah.
She was in Dear John, a show that I used to watch back in the
I love
days.
Dear John.
Yeah.
Dude, I was actually going to bring that up earlier when you said Hetty. Because I don't know why, but it made me think of Dear John. And I almost said Dear John, but I was like, oh, wait, she wasn't on that. But I remember Kirk.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm weirdly a huge fan of Judd Hirsch.
Judd Hirsch is great.
I grew up watching Taxi and shit. Well, I'm not going to lie. I watched Dear John and Taxi.
He was great.
If you ever saw the movie Teachers, he's great in Teachers
nice.
with Nick Nolte and Joe Beth Williams.
Okay.
And Ralph Macchio and Laura Dern.
so
and
many
Crispin
people.
Glover. And no.
I also liked Jared Burns in Dear John too. I always liked Jared Burns.
That guy's great. Yeah.
He's great. He was great in Justified.
Oh yeah.
So Diallo, let's talk about the best episode that you watched.
Yes. So Grey Wolf.
Grey Wolf should have been the fucking finale.
Should have been the finale.
Yeah, agreed.
In Grey Wolf, Eric teams up with an elderly homeless man who is also a werewolf in an effort to defeat Remy, but discovers that the Grey Wolf hungers for human flesh.
Yeah, I watched. So I watched the first half of this episode, which is like 15 minutes, because I thought that Werewolf was an hour-long show. Mm-hmm. So the DVD was ripped and we put on YouTube. And before I noticed that the gentleman actually put timestamps on everything, I thought they were an hour. So I actually counted back from the end. God, guys, work smarter, not harder, okay? But I counted back from the end, of the episode of the 5 hours, you know what I mean? Because he puts them in two chunks. And trying to find, the specific episodes I'm trying to find, I accidentally watched Grey Wolf when I was trying to watch the finale, and also discovered that, oh my God, this is a 30-minute show, not an hour-long show. But so I watched some of Grey Wolf, and it was so fucking good, especially since we got to see Larry Drake in it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fuck. Okay.
Dr.
Fuck
Giggles.
Larry Drake.
Yeah, that's that guy. Whatever. Yeah, that was that was my biggest like whoa moment when he showed up. Larry Drake. For me, it's always Durant whenever I see him.
Yeah, he's also in Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, Giggles.
Dr. Giggles, in L.A. Law, which is also a secondary to me. I didn't really watch the show, but I do remember him being on it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But the guy who plays Grey Wolf, the William Morgan.
Yeah, William Morgan Shepherd. So he's you'll probably go into it, Zach. He's a very like a stacked with roles that he's played across the board. British actor. I actually know him mostly through his son Mark Shepherd, who actually I think he's on Supernatural. I think. And I also know him as the blind attorney on Battlestar Galactica.
Oh,
he was on Firefly, I think, for a little bit.
Oh, was he? Okay.
I think
no
so.
Shit.
I think I might be making that up, but
He's been around forever. He was in The Keep. The Keep. We love him in that.
Yep, we sure did. He was awesome in that.
Yeah, William Morgan Shepherd. He was in. He was like lots of voices.
Yes.
He was in showing he was in The Prestige. He was in Transformers, Star Trek 6. I think
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Actually, he's really good in that.
He's the villain in that, and that's kind of where I always sort of know him from.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. And thank you, Zach. I'm looking at his IMDb picture, and I'm frantically scrolling, being like, "Where the fuck do I know him from?" That's it. The villain in Elvira.
Mm.
Yeah. He played a villain in. You guys remember Dan Cortez?
Yeah.
From MTV.
Of course.
He did there's an old story called The Lottery, right? Where they basically choose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you get stoned to death or whatever.
Shirley Jackson.
Dan Cortez and Carrie Russell, when she was before she did Felicity, were in this made-for-TV movie, and he plays one of the villains in that of the town that's going to stone someone to death. And I just remember being a big Dan Cortez fan at the time. It's like an NBC movie.
What?
The Lottery, starring Dan Cortez.
We need to get into this. Why were you a Dan Cortez fan? That's so weird.
I don't know, because
we need to
he's
unpack
kind
this.
of cool looking.
Zach, did you like him on Seinfeld? The episode of Seinfeld he was on?
I did. I did. Wasn't it? What he was like a VJ or something, wasn't he?
No, well, yes, yeah, MTV. On Seinfeld, he was just like a cool dude that George loved. But yeah, he was like he started out as a VJ, I think, on MTV.
Well, yeah. Before I associated these guys with legit being d-bags, I was I think I was in the George Costanza thing where it's like, yeah, he's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. Yeah, cool guy.
Anyway, sorry. William Morgan Shepherd is really good.
He was in Deep Sea Quest.
Yeah, it's Sea Quest, baby.
I'm saying he was in 8 episodes, I think. So that it was not unsubstantial.
No.
He's on my show Days of Our Lives. Love that. He was in Gargoyles, Petros Xanatos, Odin and King Kenneth. I think it was just in that first the first part, I think. The first 5-part or something that kicked the show off. He was in a few other episodes, but yeah, lots and lots and lots of different roles that he has been a part of over the years. But yeah, he was a grim, gruff, homeless werewolf guy that sort of opened up a lot of the backstory that I was talking about a little bit earlier. They cut to some scenes with Remy where he talked a little bit about his motivation of why he was even trying to do what he was doing, and I actually appreciated that. It kind of made me think a little bit of in the comic books, Vandal Savage, and one thing I've never liked about Vandal Savage is that he always was someone famous. So he I was Ramses, and I was Caesar, and I was Abraham Lincoln. But I actually appreciate characters like Remy, where they might be immortal, but they kind of sit back. And he's not the guy. He might be second to the guy. And this is where he was trying to go again. I really liked that idea of him. Like he said, I haven't been this close to power since 1914. And that was sort of what was motivating this push. And he also he also intimates that he was on his plan with his new identity, and what's his name?
Eric?
No, not Eric. The other.
Oh, Jonas.
Yeah, Jonas. Jonas actually brought Eric in through their conflict, and that messed up his plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, it just like those layers. It just made the whole story like much more layered and deeper than it like you like kind of would expect from a show in this time period, and also like a show that's like 25 minutes long. You know?
Yeah. And this episode was much more moody than the other ones, especially compared to Amazing Grace. You know, this one was much darker and everything, darker in tone. And I liked how this episode started with, you know, the bounty hunter chasing Eric, and you don't really have any kind of setup. It's just, you know that he's been chasing him this entire time, so we just start this episode with him chasing him down an alley, which gives you a reason to bump into this old werewolf. And then I like this idea that, you know, you see some homeless guy on the street, and he's a fucking, you know, 2,000-year-old immortal werewolf. I think that's such a cool concept, you know. It's kind of like the Spawn idea, you know. Spawn's a homeless guy living in the alley type of thing. I think that shit's kind of cool. But I saw half of the episode. I wanted to finish it, but I kind of ran out of time. It's the one episode that I'm actually going to go back and watch in its entirety after we're done recording this, because I thought it was just too damn cool. I only made it to the part where him and Eric and the old man, Eric in werewolf form, just sitting around fire eating like, you know, meat and everything.
Yeah.
You know, and they do. That's the one thing I do like about this show is they don't have any problem showing the werewolf, and I think that's a testimony to the design. I think it's a testimony to the craftsmanship of the guys and gals who like built the suit, you know. But I like that. I like that not every episode of Werewolf it wasn't like the Hulk formulamatic where you only saw him at the very end. You know, it always sort of followed the same setup. Werewolf, from these random episodes that we've seen, he becomes a werewolf randomly throughout the episode. He could start as a werewolf and sort of, you know, be a werewolf for a lot of the episode, or maybe some episodes he's just only at the beginning and the end. I again, going back to the discussion about untethering it from the moon is, I think, the best idea that they ever came up with, although I wish we had a better sort of explanation to it, but I still think that untethering it was the best thing ever that they could do. And this is an example of that. It's not your typical formula for the episode. And in the first season, they've already started messing with the formula in the first season. It really makes you wonder what they would have done in seasons 2 or 3 or further, you know?
Yeah, I feel like everybody listening, you're welcome that you don't have to watch that last episode, because we did. And just end it with Grey Wolf, because that's a nice way to kind of finish this show. I agree with you, Corey. I like the fact that they didn't go like the Incredible Hulk route, which you know, one scene where he turns into the wolf and that's it. And this shows off the fact that they had enough of a budget and enough confidence in the way their suit looked to give him more of a spotlight, which is good. And yeah, this could have been this series could easily be rebooted. I'm okay with them just rebooting this series.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's got enough loose ends or kind of like, you know, rough around the edge moments that you could just reboot it. However, if you want
or I push back and say, you know what? Make it a requel, meaning a reboot sequel, where it still keeps the first one canon, but make Eric Cord the villain, and make the whoever, probably I hope a female, you know what I mean, the new person, make them having to track down Eric Cord.
Yeah, that could work too. I'm cool with that. Yeah. I feel like they don't. I feel like this. If you want nostalgia, though, watch this show on those YouTube links that you put up on the page. Watch those. Unfortunately, it's like, well, or fortunately, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're all there's like, you know, he puts like 10 episodes at a time or something on these But hey, God bless the guy whoever uploaded these to YouTube, because at least we have it now to watch in all its glory without having some of the songs omitted. And there's one episode called Material Girl, so maybe they used a Madonna song in that, and maybe that's why they couldn't. That was the third song in the, the reason why this didn't get released trilogy.
That was an episode right before the two-parter that you covered. Yeah. I want to like cut the Amazing Grace just a tiny bit of slack, because I actually feel like I saw what they were trying to do. They just didn't do it well.
No, I'm with you. I know what they were trying to do, and I say you don't have to watch it because it really doesn't have much to go with the overall story, and it's not as moody. But if you do watch it, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like it's not going to kill it, but it's just having such a dark series.
It belongs somewhere else.
It belonged in episode 15 or 17 or something like that,
It's not bad, but it's not good.
Well,
it's not the end,
It made me think a little bit of X-Files, actually, where, like, as the years went on, they started with their monster episodes. They started getting like comedic, hard comedy sometimes, and it worked for that show. I think for this one, it's just sort of like there was like this really sharp tonal shift that there was no, it was something that it would have been justified maybe down the line or something.
Well, because you say that X-Files did it as well, but they did it like in seasons 4.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
This is
like
doing
down
in the
line,
same first season. Yeah.
So that's my only thing. But yeah, even like Highlander did it. There was episodes where they were just like went like hardcore comedy. Whenever what's his name from The Who showed up as
Roger Daltrey.
Roger Daltrey as Fitzroy.
I loved when he was on there.
Yeah, when he showed up as Fitzroy, it went hard into comedy, and it was fun. But like, we're also talking seasons 5, 6.
Yeah. Yeah, because like when I was watching this, I was like, I understood it, like from watching TV my entire life. I'm like, I get it. I get why it's here. It's kind of a filler episode. It's just the fact that it's the last episode. That's what makes it really problem. In like story wise, there would be no difference in switching that one with Grey Wolf and just swapping them. There's no, because they're both very standalone episodes. So
they should have, because Grey Wolf ends with Remy being confronted by Alamo Joe and having a moment together, and then Remy showing his teeth at the end of the episode, and that's how it ends. And it's a great way to kind of finish it off, like what could happen next.
Yeah, that's
it's a great cliffhanger. And just end it with a cliffhanger. I'm cool with that.
Dude, that's perfect.
This show actually, now we're talking about it, made me think of like the way that they had it set up with him sort of like transforming. It's almost like the Hulk, really. It was like almost like whenever he was like stressed, but it wasn't like necessarily, that wasn't the stress that was causing it, but it was like the pentagram, which just happened to be like showing up at certain points. But there is this show, this is going to be a super deep cut, maybe Zach,
deeper than Key West that y'all didn't know.
it might be, and it's sort of like in the same vein. So there was a show in the late 70s called Lucan the Wolf Boy, and it was only on for like, I don't know, like 13 episodes. It got canceled pretty quickly, but it was a kind of like he was raised by wolves and then gets found and raised with humans after that, but he kind of retains these wolf kind of powers. But it reminded me that it's kind of like that same concept that we have here, except that this guy is actually a werewolf in our show. But he would kind of like be on the road helping people, and whenever he gets super stressed, he would turn into this. He would be himself, the young man. He'd be himself, but then he'd have these heightened wolf powers. So I don't know. I just brought it up because it was in the same genre, like the wolf thing. And also definitely TV Obscura. I gotta hunt that down.
That may pop up.
I gotta hunt that one down, man. Ooh.
So Werewolf, guys, we finally tackled it. We've been talking about it for so long. Diallo, you were just talking, man. Just finish this off, man. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, just your final thoughts on Werewolf the series.
Yeah, I think it was great. Like I said, like I often say, like some shows are ahead of its time. In this case, I wish I was an executive or had some kind of like power to, or like some kind of creator that just because I liked something, I could will something to be into a movie like The Rock did with Black Adam, where it's just this actually I think could be redone as a 10 episodes on Netflix, and done well. And I don't think you have to really change much, and you could explore the back half of his character arc, and that we don't really get to see, and you could even loop in some of the standalone elements in some of the episodes. They do a much better job today of having both the overall story arc with some standalone elements. I think like Burn Notice was really good at doing that, so you could actually end up doing that with this show instead of having them kind of be truncated. But yeah, like we're at this point now where we could see werewolves on TV, and it's sort of like commonplace now, but back then it was mind-blowing to see something like this on TV. And
I just hope that if you were that executive to greenlight this, that you would also say only practical effects, no CGI.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that. I was like, literally thinking that. I would actually really appreciate it being like a practical werewolf and not
as much as I loved being human, man. That CGI werewolf was rough.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did do. Yeah, they did do.
It wasn't great.
and I actually feel like the original version actually did practical, I think.
Yeah, they went CGI with the American version.
Yeah, the American version.
Yeah.
Luckily, he was hardly ever a werewolf, so it worked out.
It didn't kind of matter that much.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this was worth the wait. Werewolf.
Zach, my man, what you think, buddy?
Yeah, I'm so glad we could trip down memory lane one more time with this show. I'm looking forward to watching future episodes because I definitely will. It was fun. It's still fun. Still holds up in all the good ways. In the ways that it's not so good, it gets a pass because you feel like, oh, it's 80s and it's nostalgia. And there's enough character actors or people you recognize to go, oh, okay, well, at least, this person's in it, so I can get through the episode with this character actor. It was a lot of fun. Please reboot this one if you need to, because it could use it. Or if not, please release this in an HD transfer so we can see it all in all its glory. But the opening pilot episode, slam dunk, just watch that and you'll be set for life.
Yeah, I agree with both y'all. This was worth the wait. It was every bit as awesome as I remember it being. I wish we had a Blu-ray. If we did, I would buy it. I know if you have a region-free player, you can get, the French version, which I believe that's what this is. That I think you rip the French DVD. That's fine. But I just want an American Blu-ray. I want a Shout Factory fucking Blu-ray. I want this, and I think, it's deserved. It's a good show. I hope that we boost the signal a little bit on it. I hope that somebody takes notice because, it could either be rebooted, re-sequeled, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't care, but regardless, make a fucking werewolf show where a guy or a gal's hand has a fucking pentagram and it bleeds and you got werewolf. This is it. Guys and gals, this is everything you remember it being. And I'll put a link, in our show notes. Go swing on by our Patreon for free. Watch the entire series. They're 30-minute episodes, so it really won't take you that long. And I think you'll very much enjoy yourself because it's a damn good time. Oh, Zach, you look like you're about to say something. Were you going to say
Oh,
something?
no.
Okay.
No.
All right, guys. So this was a blast.
Zach's just sitting there looking pretty.
I was thinking
Always.
thinking about that Rick Springfield TV show. It's called High Tide.
High Tide. Okay, cool. Well, add that one to the TV Obscura list. Guys and gals, we have another fun TV Obscura episode for you all next month, so you have to wait and find out what that is, but it'll be something a little bit different, but it'll fit, and I think you all understand. And but we hope you enjoyed this episode of TV Obscura. Please make sure you tell your friends about us. How about that? Just go out and tell the friends. Tell the world. TV Obscura rules. Thank you all so much. Diallo, my man, where can everybody find you out there in the Twitter sphere, the podcast world, all that kind of stuff?
You can find me on Instagram as The Armageddon, Facebook authors page, The Armageddon. I just started a podcast with my co-host Jamie Smith doing Andor, the Star Wars series, and we're calling it Fandor. So we're going to be doing that in 3-episode chunks. So every 3 episodes, we're going to do our episode and break it down.
Real quick side note: are you guys fans of What We Do in the Shadows at all?
I watched the first season and loved it, and I haven't watched it since because it's on FX and it's kind of hard to. It's hard for
on
me to see it.
Fox. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, it's on Hulu, I should say. You can.
Oh, it's on Hulu. Okay.
Yeah,
I need to go back.
Yeah.
I can watch it then.
I'm a huge fan of What We Do in the Shadows, and I am very disappointed in the internet for not giving us an Andor mashup with Nandor from What We Do in the Shadows and just replacing fucking Andor's face with Nandor.
Who's Nandor?
He's the I think he's Armenian vampire in the TV show or whatever.
Okay.
The one with the long hair and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. I saw the first season, the episode where they had all the vampires.
It's so good.
From all movies. Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah. So good.
It was cool.
I actually went to a screening with that, and I met Taiki Waititi.
Ah, nice. Isn't he in like a polyamorous relationship or something?
Yeah, with Tessa Thompson and somebody else. Yeah.
Good for him. Good
yeah,
for
dude.
him.
You are living your best life.
He is for sure.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links to Diallo's Andor podcast and everything in the show notes, like always. So please go check out Fandor. I should say. Please go check out Fandor.
Yeah, we still have our Obi-Wan podcast is still up.
Obi Kenobi.
Yeah, Obi Kenobi. And First Noel I actually have some we're re-recording, and I'm going to be having professional editing and sound being done on it, so
awesome.
We'll elevate the level of that. And I have some really super cool, super awesome plans for Angela in the Dark that are in the works right now, costing me a lot of money, but it will be super cool. So we will be able to announce that in hopefully like a month or two. So
I'm a big fan of Angela and the Dark, and I can't wait to see what's coming.
We'll talk about it offline.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Zach, my man, what's going on over a $2 late fee for Halloween, baby?
Oh my gosh, so much stuff. Werewolf celebrated its 35th anniversary this year. We have a Monster Squad reunion with Sean and Rudy, Andre Gower and Ryan Lambert on our show, a Monster Squad reunion, and a 3 o'clock high 35th reunion to go along with. It's just a grab bag month. We also did a top 80s obscure 80s horror film episode with a guy named Chris Mayek, who's on YouTube, and he interviews a bunch of people. Really nice guy, very knowledgeable for being like a kid. He's 25.
Oh wow!
And we broke down. We discussed a lot of movies, some of which wound up on Pad, some of which might wind up on Pad down the road. But yeah, we've got a busy slated month over at $2 late fee. Some spooky stuff and some fun stuff with the 3 o'clock high 35th reunion.
Spooky ooky.
It's all good. It's all good stuff. It's all fun stuff. Like, I'll tell you really quick, if you're a fan of 3 O'Clock High, you're really going to want to listen to this because there's some breaking news. Things that have not been revealed yet that will be revealed on our show for the very first time.
Well, you heard it here first on Podcasting After Dark. No, I was kidding.
That's right, because it won't drop until a week after this comes out.
There you go. Oh, so it's going to drop when we do my Halloween pick for the month to kind of go with Zach's pick, which was The Guest last week. And now next week, you'll be listening to my Halloween movie pick and breakdown. Hey, Zach, should we just announce it now for the shits and giggles of it?
Sure. It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming whether you want it or not.
We need like a breaking news sound.
Well, no, while Corey's about to announce, I'll go, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it.
So we will be reviewing next week Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, one of my favorite Halloween movies.
It's coming.
Silver Shamrock. And if you watch The Guest, then you know what the connections are between the two movies. Alex Wingard is famously a huge fan of Halloween 3. He put a lot of references to that movie in The Guest and everything. So we felt it was a perfect coupling. So next week will be our my Halloween review, and then we'll have a nice little interview to round out the month. And bada bing, bada boom, Bob's your uncle. And in November, Zach and I actually get to pick something random that we have no idea what's coming. So I'm very excited for that. Zach, telling you now, buddy, the stack that you have for me, just pick right from the middle. Pick whatever the hell you want. It's going to be a complete surprise and a complete grab bag. November. It's going to be a good time.
For me, I'm going to tell you what to pick. So.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's A-okay, my friend.
Another Winghauser movie. No, I'm kidding. Or am I? You'll have to wait and find out.
Oh,
Join our Patreon, and then you'll get an exclusive.
Oh, my. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably open it on Wrap Up After Dark this month. Oh, maybe we'll both open. You know what? How about this, guys and gals? Check out our Wrap Up After Dark in October this month, and we will both open our stack, and we'll figure out what movie we're going to do next. That'll be a lot of fun. But thank you all so much for checking out the show. Thank you all so much for being fans of Podcasting After Dark and TV Obscura. Tell everybody about the shows. Leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you feel so inclined. And obviously check us out on Patreon. And everything that I just said, please apply that to both of the shows, Zach shows, Tudor Leafy, Diallo shows, Cano Bay, and Fandor, and everything like that. First Noel Chronicles. Any podcast you listen to, even if it's outside of our friends and network, leave them a 5-star review. It helps. It helps
even
so much.
Even if it's Joe Rogan's podcast.
You know what? If you love Joe Rogan, fucking leave him a 5-star review. We can't censor anybody, because once you start censoring, then you got to censor everything.
Alamo Joe Rogan.
Alamo fucking Joe Rogan. But Werewolf, guys and gals, this was awesome. Fucking loved it.
Hey, Joe smokes pot as much as you do, probably, so...
He does, and yet I think I'm a bit more level-headed than
cognizant,
he is.
Yeah.
Cognizant.
You're not a conspiracy nut. Yeah.
No. But as always,
catch you on the obscure side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.